is I'm going to talk about all the cards in Ikoria. Um, we're just gonna talk about them, just in the context of like mostly standard. I'll dip my toes into Pioneer and Historic, and Modern, like where I feel necessary, and Legacy if I think something is like duh. But for the most part, I haven't really looked at this set a whole lot. And you might be noticing if you're hopping in the Twitch chat right now. What's up, DC Sport? Tricycle or it's tricycle. I'm a tricycler. Yeah, you might be noticing this a bit more like talking to the camera showy because this is also going up on the Constructed Criticism YouTube channel. Thus, the thing below and everything. So I'm still going to talk to chat and everything, but I kind of wanted to set this up for the people watching on the YouTube channel. This is a VOD. It's obviously probably pretty long. It's going to be my guess. Feel free to skip around and whatnot. People in chat going to be talking kind of like, it's like that. So we're going to be working together. Impromptu thing. I am like screen capturing the spot with the cards on my other thing. And so if this is something people like, we can do it more in the future. And I can definitely put more work and make it look better. But this is literally like right before I went to go like for a jog, I was like, what if we did this? This could be kind of cool. And, might as well try it and just, get our feet wet. So I think the thing that makes the most sense to talk about are the mana. And this is the mana in this, I should say. So we're going to start there, and then we're going to work our way to the companion cards, and then we're going to do multicolored, and then from that I'm going to do Wooburg order. I think makes the most sense to me. Specifically because I think with thinking about cards in the context of standard, the mana matters a lot, and the companion cards will inform a lot of the cards we're looking at, and we also need to go back and think about those cards. So I really want to have those cards fresh in my mind. I don't want to like get to a companion near the end of the video and be like, oh wait, there was that card earlier. Also, the companions are such a weird thing. I want to talk about them, so we're going to start there in a second. But first, mana is very important. And we actually have the tricycle lands, as you'll see on the screen here. This is an example. So this is a wedge set. So a wedge is just kind of like the cons. The joke I've been making with friends is that if you haven't noticed, this standard environment is the standard from when I first started playing in like 2012, where we have Ravnica, Theros, and cons. Except this time it's Ravnica, Theros, and Ikoria. You didn't notice because it's dinosaurs instead of dragons. But it's essentially the same sets. And so our mana is pretty similar, but instead of having like Frontier Bivouac and things like that you like maybe played a one of in some decks, so you went in like that 26th or 27th land, we have these very, very powerful cycling tri-lands. So they are each land type according to their color. So as you see on screen, Swamp, Forest, Island. So you can fetch those. So if we ever get fetches in standard, which I think is about 0% until this set rotates, unless they did it like in the next year's core set, and like they would let us have like 2 months or something of it. But for the most part, we're not going to see that. You're going to see these two play in I think every Eternal format. That's modern and down. Like I think Historic will look at playing these cards for sure, and some of the tricolor decks. Field of the Dead decks and Historic are quite good, and these are dual lands at worst, which is we'll talk about here in a second for standard. But they're dual lands at worst, and they're different named lands for Field of the Dead, which also matters a lot for the modern decks, like Amulet Titan. Like traditionally, Amulet Titan plays out as a blue-green X deck or a blue-green deck splashing a color. So having one of these is very nice. Also, the deck has started playing fetches in low numbers, like 1 or 2, but it's something to consider. Like let's say that I think for the weekend, Assassin's Trophy is the removal spell I should have. Then I might want this Sultai Tri-land in my deck because A, it enters tapped, which I can abuse with the Amulet, and B, I can fetch it, and C, it's just very good. And it's like my Gemstone Mines, but just a slightly worse when the first turn comes in without an amulet, and better if you have 2 amulets. So that's kind of that for that card. But for standard, I think this has a lot of implications. Like one thing that people have argued is a reason Gruul isn't quite good in standard is they're lacking a dual land. Like they need another one. I don't know if playing like the teamer version of this one is worth it. I can pull it up on screen here. But there's a teamer one, which actually looks great. There's like this art is so good on the teamer one. But yeah, so like you could play this one, and I'm sorry, this is the Jeskai one. Y'all, I forget that you guys don't exactly see. I see all the cards kind of right now. Gruul Aggro, yeah. So like maybe you want to play Gruul. Also, this is really weird because I see the comment popping up on my stream, but not on the Twitch chat, which is weird, but whatever. We're figuring this out as we go. But yeah, like this is a dual land for Gruul, right? Like if you wanted to play a Gruul deck and for some reason you don't want to play one of the gain 1 life lands, like you value the cycling 3 because the deck can maybe flood a little bit, this is a land you could play. So worth mentioning, we did get the exact same lands we got with Cons, which is the gain 1 life lands uncommon. You can splash the enchantment. Yes, that's true. So you could the enchantment, the crazy Teamer one we might talk about later. You also splash just like Aether Gust, Mystical Dispute, 2 of the best cards in the format. And maybe that's good enough. Maybe that's like the trick is to play a Gruul mid-range deck. Probably isn't a mid-range deck. I think the format's kind of dominated by decks that go over the top or underneath things. But maybe that changes, you know. It's really hard, and we're going to talk about this more when we get to Companions. But it's really hard to evaluate cards, I think, and it's because like cards matter in context to other cards. And so we can see a card and we could see this, and if this was the only thing we got to standard, we're like, okay, I know what this does. But we get so many new cards and things shift so much, they can be a little hard. So my gut is that like decks like Fires and Reclamation and Bant do a good job of putting pressure on the format. Rakdos Sack does a good job of putting pressure on the format in a different way. And so it's hard to play a mid-range deck. But maybe Gruul's fast enough and then post-board has enough answer if it became Teamer to beat them. So I'm not sure, but we'll have to see. Yeah, so that's kind of it when it comes to these cycle lands. I mean, like, the fact that they cycle is very nice. Like, I do like that, you know, for each color of mana your land produces, you get to add 1 to the cycling cost, and that balances it. I think this is actually very well balanced. Albeit a little strong, maybe... in formats where like mid-range battles are good, but like I don't think that's the end of the world. Strong's a strong word there. I should say it's like good. But yeah, I like this card. I like these cards a lot. I'm excited to play with them in basically modern down, like all the formats. Pioneer, I think they're probably going to be pretty powerful. They'd be more powerful if we had Field of the Dead, but you know, still quite good. Also, I imagine Field of the Dead decks now, like we got like all the gain 1 life lands. Like as you can see here, we have like the Jungle Hollows back from I think actually these might already be in standard now that I'm thinking about it, but they're in this set. I think they were in the last year's core set, so they might have rotated soon, but now they're gonna stick around, and that's good. Like they're not like OP or anything like that. This is just the Abzan one, and we got Evolving Wilds, which I think was in the core set. It doesn't really add much to the format. We have Fabled Passage, which is like, you know, better Evolving Wilds, but if you wanted different names, then you know. Alright, so this is a pretty cool land. We'll talk about this. So this land is tap 4 colorless, and you can pay 3 and tap, so essentially 4 mana. To draw a card if you control a creature with power 4 or greater. I too love the ferocious mechanic to go along with our cons joke. Yeah, this card seems quite strong. Like, I think, and I was thinking about this on my walk today, one thing that's kind of happened in Magic recently is that we have figured out that playing extra lands is really good. And I was trying to figure out, why did that never happen before? You know, I was going and I was like, why is it that it took us so long? Is it the hive mind? Is this like a distorted perception we all have that we should have them? Yeah, this seems quite nice. Hey, Ellison, how you doing, buddy? And I was thinking, like, what is this? And I think it's actually the London Mulligan. I think the London Mulligan actually incentivizes you. Well, obviously incentivizes you to mulligan a lot, right? But the other thing it does is it incentivizes you to have extra lands. Because if you kept a hand, like let's say you mulled to 5 and you have a hand that's like Cat, Oven, Robber of the Rich, Mayhem Devil, Scry land. It is not unreasonable, I think, to bottom the Scry land if you're on the draw. I'm sorry, to keep the Scry land, bottom the other 2 lands on the draw, and then just try to curve out on them. And having extra lands lets you do that. Now, the Rakdos deck maybe isn't a great example. It only plays like 24 lands, 23 to 24 depending on your build. But still, that's something strong. And this does a similar thing where it's like, okay, let's say, you know, we've all been playing kind of Field of Ruin because it has some utility. What if instead our deck played a lot of beefy creatures? Having this gives us a mana sink in standard and adds that land count and helps us just kind of curve out on people, which is quite strong. You know, 1, 2, 3 draws are very, very good. You know, if your curve starts at like 3, for example, it's still quite good. And this helps you gas back up. It's essentially a Castle Locthwain for other colors. As long as you play Beefy Boys. And if you're down to play Beefy Boys, it's quite good. It also seems nice and modern with Titan. It's a card that maybe Amulet would be interested in playing. You could, search it up and very easily draw a card. And you could Vesuva to have 2 of these, and, that's a way to find a lot of engine. Do we want more cards? So I think that if you have 4 mana and a creature in play, you are winning a lot of games that are traditional games of Magic. But a lot of games of Magic get pretty scrappy. And what I mean by scrappy is both players have traded resources and we're kind of top decking. And this card will help you take over the top deck war much quicker. Or if you're at parity, this card's quite nice. This card's really good in scrappy, parity, and ahead situations, which if you haven't heard of quadrant theory, I guess we could talk about that real quick. I won't go into too depth, but basically there are 4 quadrants in a game, which is ahead, behind, parity, and I think it's like early, but whatever. I like scrappy as the better one, where like you're kind of both played a weird game and things have gone really long. And I think this card's really nice in every situation but behind. But even in behind, if you're just drawing lands, developing, thank you, that was the one. So developing, I do think scrappy is a serious thing to consider. It's basically parity, but it's like the late game stage of parity that sometimes games get to. I don't think a lot of standard games are getting to that point right now because of how powerful the cards are. That being said, this works quite nice with Uro. It works quite nice with Hydrocrisis. With Nissa, if you have a Hydrocrisis or Uro in play, it's very easy. You tap 2 lands, like Forest, draw a card, have a mana left over. I guess Forest Island, this actually works too if you want to make it a little simpler. So I think this card's strong, and it's just like a interesting tool to have. So I'm not convinced that this card is like some unbeatable, engine card that I guess comparing it to Castle Lockwain isn't fair because Castle Lockwain is like an unbeatable engine in scrappy games most of the time. But this is still quite good, I think. And I could definitely be wrong, and I'm definitely down to talk to chat too. So I like it when y'all question things. When y'all say, is this the case? It makes me have to talk about it, which I think leads to better content. And for those that are joining us, I see our numbers go up on Twitch. We are posting this to YouTube. And yeah, I just think it's good. So we have some weird, I'm going to kind of cover these cards as we go. If we see something really good, I don't think there's anything good in artifacts. Maybe I missed something. I'll stop and talk. But for the most part, we have a cycle of add mana, like the banners, and then they have cycling. So fine for limited, I assume. We have this weird, trap creature. Or it's a trap. It's not even a creature. It's 1 flash artifact for tap. Sacrifice this. It deals 3 damage to any target. If you have some way like Emery, this is a nice card for Emery, but besides that, I don't see much when it comes to standard. I assume it's nice and limited because it's a splashable kill spell that's expensive. This is the first flash artifact that isn't a creature. I'm going to say no, but since I started playing, probably. I can't think of one, but I feel like there was a card in Mirrodin that might have had this. But maybe that was a creature. Now that I think about it, I think it's a mirror. This might be the first flash. This is, that is something that's kind of cool about this. So that's dope. Yeah, it seems pretty cool. Also, I do like the idea if it's a spring claw trap, you spring into play and get them. Although, even broken up 4 mana for bolt's a lot. We have Sleeping Dart. Alright, I'm just going to use... Hang on, I'm going to click this to try and make it work a little better. Like I said, in the future, if we continue to do these, they'll look better, but we're kind of impromptu doing it. When Sleeping Dart enters the battlefield, draw a card. I like that. Sacrifice Sleeping Dart, destroy target creature. I'm sorry. I don't know why I said destroy. I read Dart, and then I read Dart as destroy for some reason. Sacrifice Sleeping Dart. Target creature doesn't untap during control next untap step. This card's very nice with Emery. Embercleave. I forgot Embercleave's an artifact. That's on me. Yeah. It's one of the few flash artifacts, though. Yeah, this seems sweet with Emery. It's actually like a draw engine, and since it doesn't cost mana, yeah, you could, in theory, you could top deck this late game, draw a card, sack it, target creature doesn't untap, Emery bring it back, and then kind of loop it from that point. And while drawing cards, seems like something that could be good for Emery decks in Standard. I assume Emery is strong in Standard. This thing is one of the few things that is good for Eternal formats. says that there are 10 of them. Oh, wow, okay. So there's not that many. So this is the Ozolith. Whenever a creature you control leaves the battlefield, if it had counters on it, put those counters on the Ozolith. So that's going to count like the +1/+1 counters, the first strike counters, the flying, the lifelink. If you haven't looked at this set a lot, there's a counter theme that will put keyword counters. So essentially like all of the evergreen keywords, flying, lifelink, death test, menace, all those, you're going to be able to give a creature those abilities. So the Ozolith will let you kind of Arcbound Ravager them, as we'll see here in the later lines. At the beginning of combat on your turn, if the Ozolith has counters on it, you may move all counters from the Ozolith onto target creature. So it lets you Arcbound Ravager them. It seems kind of strong, actually, like in Pioneer, maybe even Modern, with like a Hardened Scales deck. Pioneer doesn't have a Arcbound Ravager, so like this is a fairly reasonable replacement. Are they giving us tokens for that? I believe there are punch-out tokens, kind of like the Amonkhet, bring back a card from the graveyard, Entomb, or Embalm, whatever it was. But yeah, it's kind of like that is my understanding. Also, if you're someone who's smart out there, you should probably make dice that have like the 6 most popular keywords on them and sell those so people can put like menace and stuff. But yeah, this card, it seems quite strong in those formats. And in this format, it's hard to know. And I guess now is another time to kind of mention this, but this set pushes a lot of boundaries. Because this set pushes a lot of boundaries, it's very hard for me to evaluate cards. It makes me very skeptical of cards that aren't obvious rate cards. Like there's a kill spell in this set that we're able to compare to Doomblade and stuff, and it's like, oh, this is the best Doomblade ever. And we're like, okay, we know that. We have other things to compare. I have like nothing to compare the Ozolith to in Magic except Arcbound Ravager. And it is like a harder to kill Arcbound Ravager that in some ways is better because the keyword counters are important to move in Standard. So I think this card has the very, very, very high potential to be good. I have zero clue for Standard because I have no idea. But it's something that I would look at, and I would guess you need to have a lot of it at efficient rates. So when we're moving forward, hey Andrew, how you doing, buddy? Yeah, Pioneer Skills will love this deck. Moving forward, we're going to think about things that give counters, and we're going to reference the Ozolith of maybe that's something we should do. I think also the Ozolith is potentially a good sideboard card against removal decks. So like, for example, if I played this card in 1 and then I played a Johnny's Pride Mate, right, or something like that, and I gained some life, and then actually this card works very well with Heliod along that same line, right? Let's say we're playing a Heliod deck, and for some reason we have extra counter cards that I don't know about now, but let's pretend we have some. And I play the Ozolith, and my opponent rafts. I can move everything here, and then when my new creature comes, all my Heliod counters I've worked on, they're not lost. And so now I can move those Heliod counters over on the Ozolith onto my Healer's Hawk, right, on the first turn that it can attack. So it's a great way to get around that, because before Heliod, what you would start doing is you'd actually start making your Heliod huge. Like I've had like 13 Heliods. I thought that I was going to get board wiped because I needed to insulate myself from the counters being wasted. And so eventually when I turned my Heliod back on, it was like, okay, I re-get all that work I made. I put into my card. And the Ozolith lets you do that immediately. So I think this card's strong. Just like I mentioned a little earlier, and Andrew's mentioning here in chat, seems very, very good in Pioneer Scales because it is a Arcbound Ravager for them. Once again, I don't know how many of these you would play main and sideboard, but I know it's something that if you're playing Scales, we've seen Dominic Harvey actually win a PTQ last week on Modo with Scales. This is definitely a card. And I believe Dom even said this card's great in that archetype, so that's comforting to know. Sometimes, you have these thoughts where you're like, this card's good or not, and then someone who knows what they're doing says, no, it's legit. And you're like, okay, whew. Let's see here. Let's move up. So this is another one of the cycling banners. We have a couple of these, it looks to be. The Crystalline Giant. Okay. By the way, cards that are just like tutus and tappers and things like that, unless I believe they are super above rate, we're just going to skip them for the sake of my voice. Crystalline Giant is a 3-mana artifact creature giant. At the beginning of combat, on your turn, choose a kind of counter at random that Crystalline Giant doesn't have on it from among flying, first strike, death touch, hexproof, lifelink, menace, reach, trample, vigilance, and +1/+1s. I believe that's 10 counters. Put a counter on it of that kind. I have zero clue how I'm supposed to decide this in paper. Don't know. Card's really cool. Probably not playable. Very nice with the Ozolith. For the sake of, being like, roll a d10. Are there d10s? If so, sure. I'll roll a d10, and the way in which they pop up in the card text will be 1 through 10. And then when I get to 9, I'll re-roll, and then, people talk a lot about this set being, like, made for Arena. This is the card that is besides keyword counters, this is the part that annoys me the most, is this. But probably not good enough. Very good with the Ozolith, right? Like, you can just build a Voltron, sack this thing, move your counters onto something that could use the counters more effectively. All right, so this is the Mothra Egg or Mysterious Egg, if you're not using the Godzilla cards. It's 1 for a colorless creature egg. So it's not an Eldrazi, but a colorless creature. So I don't think we actually have many of those before this, but we actually have a couple in this set. It's not an artifact as well. Whenever this creature mutates, put a +1/+1 counter on it. It's a 0/2. So I'm going to take a drink of water. I'm going to explain mutate. I will explain mutate again if someone in chat joins later during the stream. For people at home on YouTube, this is your example. I'm going to use my hands. This is my Mysterious Egg. It is this top hand. I'm going to have a mutate creature with a mutate cost, which we'll see here in a minute. When you mutate, you can do one of two things. You can put it behind my egg, right? So my egg is now the top creature, or I can put it on top, and now the egg is now the bottom creature. The way mutate works is they share their text boxes, right? So in the future, even whichever one I put on top, we would always put a +1/+1 counter on our creature. Now, if let's say we had a 1/1 creature, right? We could choose to make our creature, 1/1 mutate guy I just made up. And we would be a 1/1 that whenever we mutate, we get a +1/+1 counter from the egg from earlier, where we can decide to keep the egg body if we want to have more toughness for whatever reason, right? So that's why creatures with counters are so good with mutate creatures. So you want to think about like Ravnica Allegiance. We had Hydroid Krasis, the adapt mechanic. I think specifically of the Mana Elf, the one that for adapt 5 got 3 +1/+1 counters. It's like an elf something. So as long as it's a non-human is what mutate works with. With that being the case, like those creatures are very good with mutate. And so the Mysterious Egg is very nice with mutate because it is a early creature. It's like an early body, so you can give your mutate creature haste, right? And then it gets counters, counter stay, builds a Voltron. Yes, so either you get no. You get all the text boxes always. So can you all see you can't see my mouse on the screen. Okay, it's capturing the window. So the when a creature mutates, +1/+1 counter. If this is the 9th card on the stack, if I had 9 hands here, right, and we were going back, and the egg was right here, you would still get +1/+1. You'd also get every other keyword on the way, right? So if you were to have, like, let's pretend the egg had mutate for a second. If you mutated multiple eggs, you would get +1/+1 every time you mutated, right? So you get 4 +1/+1 counters. When we get to another creature, I'll go over it, I guess, slightly again there. But for the most part, that's how mutate works. So this is like your mutate enabler. It seems fine. I think there are probably stronger things for constructed, but for limited, it seems good. All right, we have another. This is just a Borderland Ranger. Go grab a land. We have this in standard. The fact it's colorless is nice. Okay. Adaptive Shimmerer. 5 mana for a creature insect flash. Adaptive Shimmerer enters the battlefield with 3 +1/+1 counters on it. All right, so this is a creature that is good with mutate creatures, right? Because it has +1/+1 counters. Power and toughness. Yes, exactly. So you only get the power and toughness of the top creature. So most of the time, you're going to want to mutate the biggest, beefiest boy on top, and put the smallest ones underneath. Determines power, toughness, name. Exactly. Yes. So that is like how things are going to play out. So like for example, if you were to mutate on top of this guy, you would have 0 base power and toughness. So you probably want to put this on bottom. But luckily, this creature, very good for limited, has 3 +1/+1 counters. So it's a mutate enabler, kind of like our egg. Nothing too special there. All right, now we get to get into it. I'm going to take a drink of water before we get into this. All right. Companion. So the way companion cards work is they all have a requirement. So let's read this one real quick. This one is Zerata the Dawn Waker, 1 hybrid red, white, and they're all hybrid 2 colors. They're the 10 guilds. Companion, each permanent card in your starting deck has an activated ability. Lands count as activated abilities, as I learned. So you don't have to worry about that. Originally, I thought you had to have stuff like Blast Zone, Field of Ruin, but you do not. Then it has an ability, and we'll get back to the companion in a second, but we're just going to read the whole card here. It has an ability of activated abilities that aren't mana abilities, cost 2 less to activate. This effect cannot reduce them to less than 1 mana. So you'll always have to spend 1 mana, but something like Eldrazi Displacer will just cost a colorless, right? It will be very easy to flicker a thing. So you can flicker a lot. And you have 1 tap, target creature can't block this turn. So it also gets through there. So what does Companion do? Companion creatures start outside of your deck if you want them to. So you can put 4 of this in your deck and just draw and play it as a 3/3 that has that text box, which I think is actually maybe the best way to play this one, but whatever. Doesn't matter. I'll get to that in a second. It goes to your sideboard. And so what you would do is, let me grab some cards. All right, so I've got my cards, right? And we'll pretend this unsleeved card is my companion. It would still be sleeved for a tournament. So we shuffle up or whatever, right? We present our decks to cut, and then you say, before the game starts, I'd like to reveal a companion. I have Zerdra, the Dawnbreaker. And what that means is, it's like a commander, sort of. You can play that card from your sideboard at any time that you could play the card normally. So if you had Flash, you could flash the card in. But for the most part, you can play them on your main phase. And then when it dies, it goes to the graveyard. It doesn't go back anywhere special. That's it. And then when you sideboard, if you change your deck, right, and you make it so you have a creature that doesn't have an activated ability, you will not be able to draw that card. But you essentially have an 8th card. You have a commander, for the lack of a better term. Let me put this card back over here. So that's how these work. So, wow. Are these cards hard to evaluate? Yes, you show it, I believe, before I actually even do mulligans, is my understanding. I need a judge to 100% clarify that ruling, but my understanding is you will resolve your mulligan knowing that your opponent has all activated ability cards in their deck. Which will be nice in older formats, because like some of these look like they could be broken in Storm or something like that. And so you're going to kind of have a context of what your opponent's deck is doing, you know? And I guess we can talk about that once I reiterate this point one last time. The set is so weird, so different, and the reference points we have are like basically nothing. I have no reference point for Companion really, except for Commander, but they're not really like that. It's like a one-off thing. Yeah, but we're going to go over that, don't worry. So, but, yeah, so I get them one time. It's an interesting deck building restriction, but my evaluations of these cards might be very, very off because they're so different. So yes, so things to think about with this card and all of these cards is when you play against them, you now know your opponent's deck has red or white in it, because that's what you would do to cast it. I guess in theory, you could punk them or have a mana filtering land. Anyway, I'm going to read that in one second about the policy update here, but you would know that like my opponent has these colors in their deck, so you know that, and you know the kind of a game plan for them. And there are other cards we'll talk about more that I do better for that. I'm going to read this message just so in case it isn't clear for people on screen. We don't have a policy update yet, but I'm assuming it has to be shown before presenting your deck to your opponent to start the game. Yeah, so it seems to be that's the case. If they forget to show, my understanding is they don't get the card. You can't be like, oh, Judge, I meant to show my Zidra. In fact, I was memeing with some friends about, there's one of these I think is actually good in Standard. Like, there's a deck like Fires. And I was joking because Fires actually sideboards into creatures with less CMC than the card would allow. And so what you would do is you would present your deck, draw your 7, and be like, Judge, and then you could, like, if you wanted to scum people, you could. It's a joke, really. But, you'd be like, oh, I forgot to show my dinosaur hippo. Oh, no. And then you like 2-drop them, 3-drop them, like just get in. So, don't fall for some Hollywood BS. But jokes aside, that seems to be my understanding. Maybe this isn't, if you're watching this video in the future, you're going to know more. If someone can link me to a policy update, I would read that. But it looks like we don't have one yet, which maybe it drops during this long video. This card seems strong. Training Grounds is a powerful card, which has the same ability, but I believe lets you put activated abilities at 0, and not stuck at 1. So I think this is strong. I have no idea how to build it. It's an interesting deck building challenge for Standard, And I like companion cards. That's my hot take of the set, is that I think companion cards, for the most part, are good for Magic. They are interesting on-rail deck building challenges, and most of them don't seem good enough to actually play, which I think is the trick. You want companion cards to be like cool, like deck building challenges in a set and not broken. And the trick also is that I'm not evaluating these cards for the older formats, because I think basically all of them have a real spot in an older format somewhere, because the bigger the card pool gets, the lamer these get. And so these are cool standard cards that we maybe unfortunately have to deal with in older formats, and maybe we're just going to ban them. Don't channeling. Yeah, I guess that would be. I guess that is. That's a joke, Ellison. Let me have my joke, man. But yes, it would be kind of like. I guess that would be cheating, especially if they let you do it. Yeah, I guess they'd be like, "Do you want to reveal it now? We'll give you the chance to rewind," and then you'd be like, "No, Robber the Rich attack." But yeah, I think this card is probably strong. I have zero clue what I'm supposed to do in standard, but this is why I want to talk about the companions at the start of the video, is so that we could keep these things in mind when looking forward in the set and be like, oh, okay, this thing has a 3 or 4 mana activate ability cost that's really good. Maybe I'm supposed to put this in my deck. And this one I actually think maybe the trick is just to use it as a combo piece and not as a companion, because you can have 3 of the card in your main deck and then 1 in the sideboard for companion cost, but you can also just have 4 and 0 in your board. You can just put this card in a deck, and then when you draw and play it, it's just a 3/3 trading grounds. So I will also say before we move on, I think companion creatures are incredibly easy to interact with, except for one of the next 3 we're going to talk about, because they are creatures, and creatures die very easily to removal. So ones with strong ETBs, I think, are strong. So companions, good for Magic, easy to interact with. Hopefully I'm not super wrong about this. I was super wrong about Oka. Sky Nomad. So the Sky Nomad has companion. Your starting deck contains at least 20 cards more than your minimum deck. So in Commander, I don't even think you can actually play this card. But in Magic, normally, if you have an 80 card or more deck, you get this card. It is a little weird this doesn't have flash. Yeah, it seems like it should. It's a flying 4/5. And when this enters the battlefield, exile any number of other non-land permanents you own and control. Return them into the game on the battlefield at the beginning of the next end step. So it lets you mass flicker your board. This is really cool. I don't know what I'm supposed to do with this. I'm looking for strong ETB creatures. That's going to be a lot of these creatures. This one is sweet. This is probably the best companion when it comes to a design standpoint. Stinks. It might not be the best card, but it is, I think, is the best example of companion, where this is a really awesome deck building challenge. You get to do some really cool things, and when you're rewarded with this card, you're really rewarded. So from like a design and all that kind of standpoint, I love the Nomad. Not a big fan of this one, but we'll talk about it in a second. The Collector. I'm not going to read the mana cost, I think, anymore, because it's on screen. Sorry. If you're listening, my bad. This one's companion is each non-land card in your starting deck shares a card type. So it's companion if your decks are all the same type, like they're all artifact, they're all creature, all sorcery, whatever. And then as this creature enters the battlefield, choose a type. Spells you cast with the chosen type cost 1 less to 4/5. This one's interesting to me from a combo aspect. Like, if your deck is all artifacts, right, then this is a 4/5 brawl for artifacts. I don't know what I'm supposed to do with it. Once again, that's like the cool thing about these these companions. They present interesting challenges. I'm sure in older formats, you just have so many of a card type that it isn't a problem, and you can solve the problem even if it's not the most efficient, which luckily this does help with efficiency. So I don't know what I'm supposed to do with this card. Very, very, very cool. Oh yeah, enchantment is actually a great point. I hadn't thought about that one. The last set had an enchantment. That's a great example of thinking and using our brain. That should do. Is that the last set had an enchantment theme with enchantment creatures. So enchantment creatures and enchantments work with this card. And so that's just an example of like, well, if you did that with artifacts in Modern, there's got to be something with this. So I haven't heard anything busted for this card in Standard, but I'm sure there are busted combos. This seems just to be a creature. Each creature you control with menace can't be blocked except by 3 or more creatures. Oh, okay. So this kind of looks like a throwaway card, but I actually want to talk about this because I think there are a lot of cards with menace in the set that I noticed, and a lot of menace matter cards. So this is 3 mana for a 2/2 menace. Menace creatures now require 3 creatures to be blocked. So it's like a menace lord in a weird way. I think this card might actually, super menace. That's right. I think this card might actually be close to playable if there are enough menace creatures. Thunderfist Crusader, there's a Raptor we're going to see here in a minute. This, and there's another one. Michael Hinderrocker with the sub. Michael, thank you so much for subscribing, buddy. You rock. Sorry. Mega Menace indeed. So I think this card maybe has a shot. I know that's like a, what's the sports term? A Hail Mary. But this card, there are a lot of cards with Menace. If you could build a Menace Matters deck, this card is a lord for that. And it seems very nice and limited, so... This is the same kind of card. It's a trample lord in a weird way. Creatures you control with trample you may have this creature assign its combat damage as though it weren't blocked. So if this is super trample, right? What's the sports term, Clark? Yeah. So if you have a trample creature, I think this one isn't quite. So I think the trick to this thing is that it's 3 mana. So if you went like 1, 2, 3 on menace creatures and then played this, it'd be very easy. And I would want my aggro menace deck to be low on mana, like a low curve. So 3 is like, I think, kind of the peak of where I want to be. This thing being 4 with trample creatures is a little awkward. Nice with Gruul Spellbreaker. Nice with Pelt Collector. Nice with Hydroid Krasis, I guess, in a weird way, like Healer Hawks and things like that. But those things, like, the problem with Hydroid Krasis is that flying creatures aren't normally super big, so, like, this effect isn't great. But, yeah, it seems cool for limited. It's a monster set, so, that's how things go. I do like that both of these cards have their keywords. So, like, this has Trample, this has Menace, so they actually work for themselves, too. So, like, this is just a Flame Strike to the face if it hits. All right, time for one of the weirder companion cards. Abolish the Prey Piercer. I'm dumb. I figured it out. The Prey Piercer. It's 3 Rakdos. Companion. This is the weird one. Your starting deck contains only odd cost cards. And then it has a weird ability of, if a source you control with an odd converted mana cost would deal damage to a permanent or a player, it deals double that damage to that permanent player instead. So all of your creatures have double strike essentially in a weird way, but they also just double the damage. So the thing that I think about with this card is Cat Oven in Standard. Yeah, Cauldron Familiar, Mayhem Devil, exactly. That interaction, it's Mayhem Devil doing the damage, so it's going to shock them, and it's Cat doing the damage. I don't know if Cat Loss of Life works exactly, but at worst, you are dealing 4 damage, and you could, I think, build a sacrifice deck that is mostly odd. Ironically, the current build of sacrifice that I think is best in Standard plays a lot of 2-drops. So it's an interesting deck building challenge, but this is the cool thing about these cards, right? They are deck building challenges. This is a sweet one. Cat is life loss, but it's attacking does the damage. Sure, okay. Yeah, so the Cat's drain won't count, but, attacking will. Once again, Mayhem Devil will attack for 6, and I think the real thing to notice about this card is the menace creatures I mentioned earlier. If you, once again, you can just play this card. It's a lot of mana, but you could play this as an actual thing to cast. And menace creatures are really good at getting through. Also, menace creatures dealing double damage let them kill all the blockers, right? So a lot of time what happens is menace creatures actually don't kill both blockers; they kill one, right? Because a lot of time when we play Standard with menace creatures, and I'm thinking specifically Standard here, menace creatures just aren't strong enough. They don't do a lot of power because we don't play with the big beefy creatures that would trade 2 for 1. So this actually allows you to do that. It's kind of cool. So I'm looking out for odd cost cards. If we see odd cards double damage during the set review, that's what we're looking for. I think this card's sweet though. I really like it. Also, once again, itself dealing double damage is nice. I think isn't there a thud? We could thud somebody. I was like, there's a 1-mana fling, so that might be kind of cool. Although I don't think thud would work actually. If a source you control with an odd, I don't think that would work. I need a judge ruling on that one. We have Lutris, the Spell Chaser. This is a sick companion. Rest in peace, Band Commander. That's all I'm gonna say. It was a good ban. 1, is it For the companion, this one's really cool. It's Reno Jackson from Hearthstone. Each card in your deck has to have a different name, not counting lands. It has Flash, and when it enters the battlefield, if you cast a spell, copy target instant or sorcery spell that you control, you may choose new copies for the target. So it's a dual caster mage. Yeah, it's an elemental, which matters for Risen Reef and things like that. Risen Reef and Cavalier of Thorns, Gale, and Flame all like move through your deck a lot. So having one of those isn't as bad. One thing we probably should talk about is, I've mentioned so far a lot of the companions, and they're in kind of in colors. I want to do this too, is I've talked about them being like these guild decks, but we are in a wedge set, so maybe there's something changes up on that kind of angle. I think this card's strong, and I want to look for things that I can copy and fork, because I think sometimes the problem with copy and fork cards is they take a spot in your deck, and if I can figure out how to build a deck that's all one of, this is a nice way to mitigate that kind of drawback. Also, copying things like Thud and Fling, etc., do work the way you want them to. Or Expansion. I actually don't know if Expansion Explosion works, but I know it works because I've done it with Expansion Explosion. It does. I'm not 100% sure. I'm gonna say that it does because it's an exact copy, but I'm not exactly sure. Lutris is great. This is one of the few that actually seems constructed playable in Eternal formats very, very easily. Like, it doesn't take a lot for me to figure out how to play this card. And in Standard, I think it might actually kind of playable. I will say once again, this card forces you to build your deck in a way we're talking about in a second. So I do think there are drawbacks. So I would encourage people to not overreact. Luris, the Dream Den, is 1 Orzhov. Companion, each permanent card in your starting deck has a converted mana cost of 2 or less. You can only play 2 drops or less that are permanent. So spells, you're good. You can play like 4 3-mana spells. Like, specifically in Modern Jund, people have been experimenting with. If you don't have Bloodbraid Elf and you have this instead, right, then you can play like Tarmogoyf, Dark Confidant, Croxa, still have Liliana, still have K-Command, do all that kind of stuff. Then you can play the Hex Drinker, and it's really, really cool. Now you can have, Lily is a permanent, that's right, sorry, but you can have K-Command, things like that. So you can still have the non-permanent base spells. And you get Rin Insect, sorry, that's what I was thinking of. And then you have access to this card, which gives you some grind in late game. I don't know if that's actually super strong, but it's a very interesting deck building challenge, and once again, that's the cool part of these cards. And Standard, I actually think this card is just best as not a companion. So the fact that during each of your upkeep, if you cast 1 or more permanent spells with converted mana cost 2 or less from your graveyard, I think that's actually just kind of a thing you want to do in a deck. And so I think I just want to play this as a 3-mana 3/2 that lets me regrow stuff with lifelink. So I think this card is strong. It's also one of the few companions that you couldn't have another copy of it in your deck. Like the other ones, you could have another copy of itself. This one does a great job of not letting you do that. So that card's sweet. I think it's gonna be strong. We have Karoonga. I kind of wish. If it had Minnesota or lifelink, it'd actually be super good in our Menace deck in theory, right? Like a lot of 2 drops, like 2/2 with Menace, and then you just bring them back, especially the Raptor we'll talk about soon. Yeah, the lifelink will be nice, though, at stabilizing against other aggressive decks. Karoonga, the Macro Sage, 3 Simic Companion. Your starting deck can only have cards with converted mana cost 3 or greater that aren't lands. So basically, you can have lands and 3 CMC and greater cards, and then when Karoonga enters the battlefield, draw a card for each other permanent you control with converted mana cost 3 or greater. This card actually just fits into Standard Fires. So Standard Fires currently plays 2 Aether Gust, sometimes 3, but mostly 2. Aether Gust in the main deck, and everything else is 3 or more. And luckily, we have Adventure Creatures. So Adventure Creatures, I think we're maybe talking about this in a second here. Probably did a nice rep. Oh, cool. Luchor, so you basically discard their hand. Oh, sick. Okay, yeah, that is nice. That's good for Standard, too. But Karoonga here, sorry, 1 second, works very nice with the Adventure Creatures. So the running theory is we will take Aether Gust out of our deck. We will put Brazen Borrower in our deck, which not as strong as Aether Gust, but more versatile. So gonna be kind of cool there. And then we play this, and then you always have a card that you can go get off your fires. And then if you have fires in play, you can most likely play another card that's going to trigger this, and then you draw 2 to 3 cards, and you kind of gas back up. So Karoonga somehow has already got a deck built for it, but it'd be cool to see if there are other kind of things we can do with Karoonga. Karoonga actually seems like one of the cards that would be not good in Eternal formats, which is funny. This is a sweet one. So the Orphan Guard, it's 1 Simic. Companion, each creature in your starting deck is a cat, elemental, nightmare, dinosaur, or beast card. So you can only have cat, elemental, nightmare, beast, and dinosaur cards in your deck. Yeah, Karoonga is a fun name to say, I agree. Carrera, the Orphan Guard, is a little harder for me, but, whatever. It's Vigilance, and each other creature you control that is one of those 5 types gets +1/+1 and has Vigilance. So it's a Lord for cat, dinosaur, elemental, nightmare, and beasts. If you're playing a tribal deck, that's one of those things. This is really cool. Incentivizes you to do it. Also, if your deck plays no creatures, you get to play this for free if you're willing to give up a sideboard card. I don't know if you're willing to give up a sideboard card, but I would imagine that a deck with no creatures might do that because game 1, you would be weak to a resolved creature some percentage of the time, and you also need a way to win. And if you want to go really degenerate, you just make this your only way to win with ways to regrow it. And the Vigilance is nice because Lords and Vigilance are a fine combination. I wonder how these creatures... I imagine that they are creature types that are under-supported, and they wanted to support. Yeah, this is... Oh, yeah, it's a cat Lord for Commander decks. That's true. So, like, Commander, you get a free Lord. It's kind of cool. Also, those creature types are kind of all over the place. So, it'd be cool to get a Menagerie deck. Alright, we have a weird creature in the middle of our companions. Flying creatures you control with flying have spells your opponent casts that target this creature cost 2 more. Cool, it gives you the Frost Titan effect. It seems pretty reasonable. We're almost done with the companions. Ooh, 44 minutes in. We're in it now, boys. We're in it now. Jingrath, the Wellspring. It's 4 and just 1 hybrid mana, which is interesting. I think that's the first of these. Companion, no card in your starting deck has more than one of the same mana symbol in its mana cost. Add Wooburg mana. This can't be spent to pay generic mana cost. So it's like a Niv Mizzet commander or companion. Pretty cool. Seems strong-ish. Like, I would say the main problem with this and a lot of the companions, especially ones that like need to live, to have repeatable effects and stuff like that, is that they are creatures that take time to play and then can be interacted with. So if you have a way to cheat the summoning sickness part of this card, like with haste or something like that, this is very nice because like it's basically free if you have something to cast off it. So it seems pretty good. Yeah, so that's correct. Yeah, so generic is like not the Eldrazi mana. So nice to visit. Also, this one seems like the easiest one to put into decks. I haven't gone through and looked, but I can't think of a lot of cards that have like Pip 1 that would want something like this, like Annex, Torbrand, things like that. A lot of the Eldraine cards had like multiple pips of the same. But for the most part, Ravnica cards aren't like that. So I think this card might be stronger now in Standard, weaker when Ravnica leaves. Also, I can't imagine designing cards with these cards in mind. Seems very hard. All right, this one's sweet. I don't even know how to say this. Gyruda, Doom of Depths. 4 Dimir. Companion, your starting deck can only contain even cost cards. When this enters the battlefield, each player puts the top 4 cards of their library into their graveyard. Put a creature card with an even converted mana cost among them on the battlefield under your control. From those cards. So you could get yourself really low and Thassa's Oracle to win. It's kind of a sweet value card. And in theory, it's a 6/6 that brings something back. I think Autumn and Jerry both wrote articles about this card. Maybe Jerry just talked about it. I haven't heard this week's... Ow, I'm so sorry. That was probably really loud. I haven't heard this week's game podcast, so I don't know... Or Arena deck list, sorry. So I don't know what's going on there. But it seems like there's a lot of strong things you could do with this. And... yeah, and this is just, like, I agree, Andrew, just something that you could play in a 60, especially a 60 that has evens, and there might be ways to, abuse that. Also, if you're playing a mill deck, it's kind of cool. It does mill your opponent for 4, and it's a 6/6 body, so it's kind of nice. It's also a very sweet Godzilla art, which we don't have up here, but the Godzilla arts are kind of cool. I'm pro Godzilla art. You know, they don't really look like Magic cards, but whatever, who cares? Most Magic cards don't look like Magic cards from the start. That's my opinion. All right, so that was all of our companions. So I'm going to go through the gold cards. I'm going to do Wooburg after that. We're going to try and keep in mind those companion cards when we're talking about these cards. This is going to be wild. So first up, we have Fiend Artisan, and this is a nice one. It's Golgari mana. Fiend Artisan gets +1/+1 for each creature in your graveyard. So the more things we dump in our graveyard, some self-mill stuff. We saw that in Theros, so that's important to keep our minds on. And has X hybrid green-black, tap, sacrifice another creature, search your library for a creature card with converted mana cost X or less, put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle your library, activate this ability anytime you could cast a sorcery. So you can't use this in response to a removal spell, thank God. That would be very frustrating, especially since this isn't legendary, because you have like 2 of them, and you're like, what you gonna do? What you gonna do? Yeah, I'll search up another one. Yeah, this seems nice in Yogg and Modern. I would say the drawback to this card is you have to get to the untap step, but there might be a way to cheat that. In Modern, we might actually maybe play Anger or something like that. I think Anger's Modern legal, isn't it? Maybe that's actually before Modern. Not sure. But I'm sure there are ways to cheat that type of effect. And also, it's just kind of big. And, you know, it's kind of like Knight of the Reliquary, but for creatures. You do have to sink more mana into a creature than you're getting back, but hopefully it has a powerful ETB or something that you can use to, you know, generate extra value from all this happening. One of the creatures that I think is nice with this is Cauldron Familiar. Like, you could just have a Cauldron Familiar laying around, sacrifice it, and then if your creature was going to die, another one, you can just sacrifice it to an oven to get back Cauldron Familiar. And then you can go get something like Mayhem Devil, or Woe Strider, or, you know, Priest, or blah, 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 blah. Or you can sacrifice, you know, your like lamb from your Woe Strider to go find a cat to trigger your oven. Anger is not Modern legal? Okay. Thank you very much, Doom. But yeah, so I as soon as I said that, I was like, dang, why aren't there any Anger decks in Modern? Yeah, and I think that's why this is strong. We saw in Theros there were a lot of self-mill cards, so I'd want to go back and check out that if I was trying to build with this card. And then just creatures with good ETBs and dies I'm looking for. So like the Cavaliers are nice with this, right? Like if I were to sacrifice the Green Cavalier, I believe the way it would work is that I would sacrifice it, resolve the card, and then my Cavalier effect would go on the stack. I'm not 100% sure. But like if that's the case, then ETB, get a land, mill stuff, make this bigger, go get something and get it back is nice. It just seems like a strong card. Not busted, but, you know, like, this is a cool card. I'm excited to play with it. It does seem a little overshadowed by what we're doing in current standard, but we won't be doing current standard forever, and it's very, very, very easy to poo-poo on a card and make it sound bad. I could do that for the entire set review, and I can make every card in this set seem bad. Craig, thank you so much for the subscription, buddy. You rock. How you doing? Not what we're here for. This is also like a nice little warmer up for this week's Pick 2 set review. All right, this card's kind of cool. Cunning Nightbounder, Demir, Flash for a human rogue. I guess I should mention the creature types, but I gotta kind of count on y'all to look at this one. Spells with Flash you cast cost 1 less to cast and cannot be countered. So if you stick this creature, you have now uncounterable Frilled Mystic, Night Pass Ambusher, Spectral Sailor, Brazen Borrower, things of that nature. There were some other Flash creatures in this set. There's a Bat and an Octopus that are quite good that we'll talk about that mutate. This card's good. It's definitely a card I'd be interested in the sideboard for, you know, having my own Teferi. Counterspells suck. Next. All right. Alert Headbonder? I think that's how you said it. Headbonder? I don't know. 1 Selesnya for a human scout vigilance at the beginning of your end step. If you gain 1 life, you gain 1 life for each creature with vigilance. This is an interesting card. It's funny because I want to put it with the companion that gives everything vigilance, but I can't because it's a human scout. I guess I could just put those 2 cards in the same deck. But this card seems sweet. It seems like a great kind of sideboard option that you could have against something a little expensive, but, you know, might be something you're looking for in a vigilance deck. Also, important to remember with all of these, I mean, I didn't mention this with the Menace Lord earlier, and I should have. This is the Vigilance Lord, or the Trample Lord we saw earlier, is that there are now counters that give the keywords. So even creatures we see that don't have the keyword could have the keyword. So we need to remember with our Menace Lord and stuff like that, we're looking for Menace Enablers and Vigilance Enablers. All right, this is the wild one. Zenith Flare. 2 red white for an instant. Zenith Flare deals X damage to any target, and you gain X life, or X the number of cards with cycling in your graveyard. This seems strong if you can enable it. I imagine there's some sort of like Hyper, Morpho Secret Keeper myself, Tameo myself, Cavalier myself, Zenith U deck that's quite fun. I don't know how good that is. That's a 4-color deck that I just described, but very cool and seems like a very cool card for limited. There are a good amount of cards with cycling, so I imagine this is like a Lightning Helix a lot of the time, which I imagine most formats you pay for if later in the game it could be like, a super duper Lightning Helix and gain you 6 or 7 life. This is a cool card. Also very cool for older formats, another way to win with that kind of stuff. Anything is possible today. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, also, that is important to mention. If you have the Tri-Lands, you could enable this with those colors, and that's 8 cards with cycling, and the cards I mentioned, all mill cards. So you could hit those lands. You also just cycle the lands to find this. So a little slow, a little dirtily. Very, very cool. Hopefully it's good enough. This card seems strong. All right. I like how I can see the cards before y'all. It's kind of funny. All right. Winota Rider. Joiner of Forces. Winota Rider says 2 red white, legendary creature, human warrior. Whenever a non-human creature you control attacks, look at the top 6 cards of your library. You may put a human creature from among them onto the battlefield tapped and attacking. It gains indestructible until end of turn. Put the rest of the cards in the bottom of your library in a random order. The meme is Legion War Boss in this card. This card seems very nice in a actual just Boros attack deck. The Boros deck from last year's standard, I thought when Ravnica Allegiance, or the first set, was very, very close. This is a great enabler for that. It itself doesn't have to attack, so you can kind of curve out. Creatures like that are humans to hit off this that are nice are like Robber of the Rich is the first one I can think of. All the Knights are humans for the most part, so we could do something like that. And we have really good non-humans. Oh, we also have it's not a great card, but there's the red-white 2/3 with Mentor. Oh, and there's Haktos, whatever his name is. Well, Haktos is a human you could hit from this. That's quite good. But Tajik. So you have Tajik, the 2/3, this, like a knight, all the things I mentioned. And then Legion War Boss plus this. You just, generate some good value. Very strong, very powerful. It is going to be a wild time playing with this card. I don't even know if it has to hit off every single attack. I think as long as you get 1 creature per combat step, you'd be good. And I assume it triggers off multiple attacks, right? Am I mistaken with that, Twitch chat? Twitch, what do y'all think of this card? So I take a drink of water. I might have to refill my water. We're on the last little bit. Not good. We're on gold and now we're in. All right, Twitch chat doesn't have any strong thoughts on this one, it seems. Maybe they're typing. We can always come back. All right, well, we're on to some of the wild enchantment cards. Whirlwind of Thought. Seems lacking. Okay. Yeah, it asks a lot of you, but it's kind of a cool companion-like deck building challenge. Whirlwind of Thought. 1 in Jeskai. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, draw a card. Yeah, you do need a good split. Robber, which was the one I had said earlier. I couldn't remember its name. What in the world is happening? In 1 second. Okay. Just a strong engine card. Like, whenever you cast a non-creature spell, the thing that I imagine you could do with this card is, like, if you had a lot of cheap artifacts and stuff like that, you could churn through your deck and try to play fast as Oracle. Agent of Treachery. Oh, Agent of Treachery is a human. That's hot. That's a good meme. I'm about that one, actually. Yeah, this card does do stuff with Jeskai Ascendancy. It is both Jeskai colors and draws a card. What a world. Somehow, in a world of crazy enchantments to do something, this one is one of the least interesting ones to me. I am sure I can draw a lot of cards with this card. I don't know if that's what I need to be doing. whatever. That's where I'm at. Our actual first mutate creature. So this is, oh boy, I'm gonna try Vadrock, Apex of Thunder. It is Jeskai mana. It has mutate for 1, and then hybrid Azorius red on the mutate. And it's flying first strike. Whenever this creature mutates, you may cast target non-creature card with converted mana cost 3 or less from your graveyard without paying its mana cost. This one seems pretty good of the mutate creatures. I'm not sure exactly what I want to be bringing back with this card, but what I find interesting is that if I were to be playing a blue-red deck or a red-white deck, a Boros or an Izzet deck, I could in theory play this card and just never plan to actually cast it, which is interesting. One thing we didn't mention is if you try to mutate on a creature and the creature dies mid-mutate, then you just get this 3/3. So you don't get got really hard. They try to do it in response. So when mutating, you will either only get the creature or you'll get the ability off. So if you kill the creature with the ability on the stack, you still get it, obviously. And flying and first strike are 2 really good keywords to give something. So I think that's kind of cool. I'm not sure what things I want to be recurring, but I want to keep my eye on this card as we're going through this set and thinking about things like of that nature. My guess is that this is quite nice in Historic. There are actually a lot of cards for like the blue-red Prowessy Wizardsy deck, and this seems like something that's kind of nice if it wasn't for there's so many humans. So there might be some sort of weird offshoot deck you can play. Also an Elemental, Risen Reef, Cap of Pride. Okay. Trumpeting Gnar. 1 blue-green. Creature beast mutate. Whenever this creature mutates, create a 3/3 green beast creature token. So it's like a mutate enabler. You curve this thing and then you put something on and you get a 3/3. That's nice. And then also, you can add this ability to something later. This card seems good for limited. If you're trying to build a mutate constructed deck, I would look at this card. Titan's Nest. I saw Twitter freaking out about this card earlier and makes me think I misread the card. 1 and then Sultai. Enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, look at the top card of your library. You may put that card in your graveyard. Okay? Exile a card from your graveyard. Add a colorless mana. Spend that mana only to cast a colorless spell without an X in its mana cost. So, a colored spell, not a colorless. So, it doesn't work for Titans, which I, for a second, thought I was alluding to. So this thing lets you ramp, exile a card. So I can use the exile a card part of my graveyard every time, right? So I could cast like Cavalier of Thorns for like green, and Cavalier Fuels the next Cavalier. Yeah, your spells have Delve 1. Yeah. That's strong. I don't know if it's probably really good. It's a really strong engine, right? This card's really weird. It's hard to like react to this card off the cuff. I think this card's probably good, but you have to invest 4 mana first. That being said, if you have multiple mana to play, you might get if you had multiple mana sources in play beforehand, this would discount by 4 if you cast something, right? Like in the Cavalier example, if I played a Cavalier the turn before, I'd have 6 lands. I could play this, have green up in theory, and then cast another Cavalier. And that would be powerful, So yeah, Titan's Nest seems strong. I don't know what I'm supposed to do with it. I saw Yo-Man saying that like there's a Splinter Twin combo with this and the Commander from Innistrad that like when a card hits your graveyard, deal 1 damage. So I imagine there's some way to mill yourself. I think we have a Splinter Twin situation there, and so I'm not a believer. All right. Sprite Dargan. This card I like a lot. It's blue-red for a dragon fairy, which is nice. Has flying haste. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, put a +1/+1 counter on this card. 1/1. So it's kind of like Storm Chaser Mage, which has seen Fringe Legacy play. Fringe, it actually won the Pioneer GP. So at Fringe Pioneer play and Fringe Modern play, if you don't want the wizard type, this is nice. If you want just this kind of ability, this is very nice. And in this set works well with Mutate. But either way, this card I think is quite strong in those older formats. And in Standard, maybe there's something we can play like a Blitzy type deck. I'm really interested with this card in Modern, Pioneer, where the blue-red prowessy spells deck was pretty close, I think, and maybe having this over some of the other cards could be the thing that maybe pushes that. I'm not sure if that deck is lacking like good cards to play. Like Get Your Lava Runner is not really a great card. It's like a fine card, but the Sprite Dargan is like a strong card. So I don't have a lot to say on this one. I know we have Op Shock, Fire Prophecy, which we'll talk about in a little bit. There's some really strong cards that go with this, but I'm not sure if you could Delver with this card. It is nice. I'm so sorry. It's nice with the Octopus, which we haven't seen yet, but there's an Octopus, and I'll mention the Dragon then, that could like mutate onto this, and then, you know, the +1 planners are nice because they stick around, blah, blah, blah. We get it. Counters are good to mutate. All right. Ooh, Song of Creation, the card that's breaking the internet. The Kim Kardashian of the set. Or one of them. There's a lot of Kims. Song of Creation. 1, Teamer. Enchantment. You may play an additional land card on each of your turns. So nice. Then whenever you cast a spell, draw 2 cards. At the beginning of your end step, discard your hand. So this card basically says when you cast a spell, draw 2, and you can keep casting as much as you can. And at the end of your turn, you're going to have to give up all those extra resources you gained. There are ways to mitigate this. There's even a card in the set, which we'll get to soon, which is a blue-red legend, that whenever you discard, the first time you discard cards this turn, draw that many cards. So at the end of your turn, if you had her in play, you could like discard 3, draw 3, right? Which is kind of powerful. And if you fly out on lands, right, this card will let you go off harder when you hit the next patch. It seems very cool. The things I like with this card are Thassa's Oracle and Jace, Wielder of Mysteries. I like just the Teamer package, but I think you probably need to have one of those 2 cards I just mentioned before, because it's very easy to deck yourself with the current Teamer shells. But this card is awesome. There are a lot of really strong and cool build arounds. This is a really strong, cool build around. In older formats, it is very, very strong. We've seen people like Dom suggest that like there are enough 0 mana draw card cards like Bobble, all the Bobbly cards, the Opal cards, and a Thassa's Oracle that you can just play this and then draw your deck and win the game. And you're generating extra mana along the way. So yeah, I think this card's strong. I don't think it's gonna break standard because this card's not to say dies to Doomblade, but it is hit by Aether Gust and Mystical Dispute, which is nice. And in the older formats, it also hits by both blasts, which is nice. But either way, this card, you do have to stick it, and you have to kind of go off. And if you don't have the Granium play, where you don't play this card like a 6-drop, then you're going to lose your hand, and you need to draw something from that point. This card's cool, and I like that it makes me go a direction that isn't Hydroid Crisis in a blue-green deck, or a blue-green X deck. I don't know, what does Twitch chat think about this card? Any thoughts? I know that a lot of people think it is busted, and I think it is quite strong. Other things I like with this card are just like, I like against this card are Brazen Borrowette. Coolest card so far, hands down. Okay. Yeah, it definitely, art's insane too. It definitely is a very cool card. I cannot wait to Brazen Borrow this. I think the trick to this card is it is 4 mana to play, 7 to cast. You know what I mean? Yeah, you need to have other things to do, draw cards. I agree with that. I think the elemental deck that we've seen in standard that tries to mill itself and place like Tameo is strong with this card. If you have Tameo in play, that's a way to get back a card to just chain off, including this card. Helps us mill our own deck, and then we can buy back a miller. And then also like Risen Reef and the Cavaliers do a good job of moving through our deck. And since we're moving through our deck, it's nice. Adventure Creatures, oh, that's a really good one. I hadn't thought about that. That's actually a great point. If we just put our creatures on an adventure, like, we then get them on the second half. That's very, very strong. Yeah. I like that a lot. Yeah, this card's cool. Oh, man. Twitch chat's popping up. Yeah. The Adventure Creatures are very nice. It's also worth mentioning Adventure Creatures on, like, the even and odd cards do a good job of fixing your curve, right? Like, Bone Crusher Giant is a really nice odd card that plays really nice with our odd companion card that is also an even spell for our mana curve, which is nice. Oh, yeah, that's nice. That is very good. I think that's it for this. Maybe we'll think about it more, but we need to keep this card in mind. Chemistry's Insight. Yeah, that one's nice. Yeah, all the Jumpstart cards are nice with that, right? Like Radical Idea, Chemistry's Insight, Quasi Duplicate's actually already in that deck, so you could see that in here. Just nice. Man, this card's so cool, and I just think it's not going to see play. Snapdax, Apex of the Hunt. 1 in Mardu. When this creature has a mutate for 2, and then Rakdos white, double strike, which is I assume a great thing for mutate because I'm going to use +1/+1 counter, so my boy is going to be huge. Whenever this creature mutates, it deals 4 damage to target creature or planeswalker an opponent controls, and you gain 4 life. Yeah, Phoenix might be back on the menu with that last card. I just wrote about that in her preview article. Cathartic Union is nice for getting an extra of those as well. Although I guess you could... Is it legendary? Hang on. It's not legendary. You could have 2 of these in play. Ooh, deck ourselves. You're going to have to do something about not decking yourself. Snapdax, though. Strong rate creature. Seems great in an adapt deck. Maybe I just play this thing for rate. Like, if I had a aggressive Mardu deck, I might actually just want this as a 3/5 double strike that becomes a pump spell for something later if I had a bigger creature. The decks in Standard right now are doing a really good job of going over the top of the battlefield. Hard to imagine this is it. We'll have to see. I just can't tell you for sure. Part of the 60... Yeah, it's just like a card in your deck. And if you have a mutate deck, I imagine if you're in the Mardu colors, you play this. Or even, once again, because of its mana cost, like if you're a Boros or Orzhov mutate deck, you could play this card, but it's only a mutate at that point. Rotting Register and... Ooh! Rotting Register and turn sideways. Villager and Embercleave. That's actually interesting. Yeah, it is Embercleave. I hadn't thought of it like that, because the double strike... That's an important thing I need to keep in mind. The mutate, the keywords, even though I mentioned that. It is double strike. I don't know if that's better than Embercleave. It might just not matter that it's better than Embercleave. It might just be another Embercleave. Like you just get 5 Embercleaves. I would need to look at the types of my deck, but this might actually just be kind of good. We're getting takes now. Hang on. I'll check out... Nice. We got a bot. Yeah. Hang on. I'm trying to ban them. It's like we got a lot of comments all of a sudden. What the fuck happened? Ban user. Oh, wait. I almost banned the wrong person. No, wait. I'm sorry. I banned the wrong person, I think. Did I ban the wrong person? Doom. Wait. Doom, hang on. How do I unban someone? Doomstein, I accidentally banned you because it moved. I didn't mean to ban Doomstein. It moved on me when I clicked on it. How do I unban someone? Doom, I'm so sorry, homie. I didn't mean to do you like that. I'm so sorry. Thank you, Ellison. I like clicked on it and their color was the same. I didn't notice until I looked at what the message said. I'm so sorry, Doom. Yeah, Ellison's the real MVP. This seems strong. Even with the double strike, I guess we have to play this card in an aggressive deck where the double strike matters. I guess clearing the way with a 4, like if you dealt 4 because you mutated onto a register, that would probably clear most of the way. Yeah, Doom, I'm so sorry. Your color was the same, and like your message popped up in between. I'm so sorry, Doom. Yeah, YouTube is freaking out for a second. YouTube's gonna have to deal with it. They got a set review. They got another set review. This card's cool. I do think about it in this context of Embercleave, but a little worried. A lot of cool cards in this set, and a lot of already really cool and powerful cards in Standard. Slitherwisp. Blue, black. Flash. Whenever you cast another spell that has flash, you draw a card and each opponent loses a life. This is 2 blue-black flash cards we've seen now. The uncounterable one and this. kind of nice. Kind of about it. I don't know. I think this card's cool. It's like a 3/2. I don't know if it's strong enough for standard. I guess the upside about a flash deck is that they get to prey on the go bigger decks, and they have things like Quench, Aether Gust, Mystical Dispute. Maybe this is actually reasonable. I guess you could play a Sultai flash deck too, because you're the Tri-Land. The Tri-Lands do make aggro decks better, I think, if people are greedy, especially week 1. Yeah, Sultai Flash, I'm about it. Yeah, you get Thought Erasure, this, Octopus, Bat. Can't be countered, Frilled Mystic, Quench, Gust. You know, get a lot of great things. Alright, let's move on. This card's cool. God, there are too many. I thought I was going to be able to skip it. I mean, I'm going to get to skip cards later for my throat, but we haven't hit a whole lot of cards I could skip, so my throat's really feeling it. Sky Cat Sovereign. Blue-white. Flying, whenever Sky Sovereign gets +1/+1 for each other creature you control with flying. And then 2 white, blue, create a 1/1 white cat bird creature token with flying. So makes tokens and then gets bigger with stuff. I think there was a card like this in OG Ravnica. I saw it compared to on Twitter. Seems really cool. There are a lot of creatures in those mana costs that are cheap that have flying, like Healer's Hawk and Spectral Sailor come to mind. So you kind of have a little bit of a curve. We have a couple of cards that actually reward flyers. There's the Angel from the core set where you can like tap 5 creatures with flying and then pay like 1 mana or 2 mana to play it. And it's a 5/5 and it buffs other flyers, I believe. You have that. You have the Pump spell. There's like a +2/+2 untap all your creatures with flying for 3 mana spell. So this is a nice way to like get them there. Seems kind of strong. It's a cool deck building challenge card. Alright, this card's pretty cool. Skull Prophet, Golgari mana, so black and a green for a human druid. Tap, add a black or green, and you can also tap to put the top 2 cards of your library into your graveyard. Very nice for like the self-mill stuff. We saw this with Theros with Escape. This card's kind of cool, and it's a mana enabler. Probably not strong enough for standard. Pretty cool. That seems like a role player card for what it's worth. Pride of the Clouds from Ravnica. Okay, gotcha. Yeah, that's the card. Whew. Salvia Thundermane. I love the Salvia Thundermane. Red-white, Elemental Cat 3/2. Whenever you cycle a card, you may pay 2 when you do. Salvia deals 2 damage to target creature, and you gain 2 life. Really, really cool and limited. Really, really cool in that Zenith Flare deck that we had. I don't know if it's actually good enough. Thank you, the Spark 87. You sure it's not Salvia? Alright. This card's cool. Alright, we've hit the ultimatums. What's grammar? Never heard of it. Listen, man. I got bad dyslexia. Alright, give me a break. Ruinous Ultimatum. Red, white, black. Sorcery. Destroy all non-land permanents your opponent controls. This card's dope. V like Vi. Oh, okay. Vi. Gotcha. Savai. Cool. That makes a lot more sense. We had Golos in the set. I want to hit this off Golos. Next. Here's Granny I was talking about from earlier. The Everwise. Riley? Really? Who knows? 1 blue-red legendary creature, human wizard. This creature gets power +1/+0 for each instant and sorcery in your graveyard. Whenever you discard 1 or more cards for the first time each turn, draw that many cards. This and our good friend, the Teamer Enchantment, is a combo. Also very nice with all of the Jumpstart cards we talked about. Very nice with the Phoenix cards. I think this card's like a really strong role player. The Ironcrag Pyromancer is a card that I haven't talked about yet. But I think this plus that give you like an actual amount of curve. Like probably gives you like 6 to 7 3-drops that you actually want to play that can maybe impact the board. And drawing extra cards, rummaging through your deck and doing that kind of stuff. This will help mitigate that and reward you for doing it. I think this card actually has a reasonable chance to see play. I don't know if a Phoenix type deck is actually playable in a competitive standard environment, but this seems like a great card if you're playing a Phoenix deck and an enabler. And that stuff matters. All right. Weird mutate cards. Regal Leosaur. Red-white dinosaur cat. Mutate. One hybrid. It's one Boros. Whenever this creature mutates, other creatures you control get +2/+1. Sweet for limited. Dinosaur. Quartz Wood Crasher. 2 red, green. Dinosaur Beast Trample. Whenever one or more creatures you control with Trample deals combat damage to a player, create an XX green dinosaur beast creature token with Trample, where X is the amount of damage those creatures dealt to that player. This is nice with the 4-drop we saw earlier in the set. And another reason I'm glad we did that. You get to actually just hit them and then make another one of these, sort of, if it dies in combat. Probably not constructed playable. Seems great and limited. Seems awesome. Primal Empathy. 1 blue-green enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, draw a card. If you control a creature with the greatest power among creatures on the battlefield, otherwise put a +1/+1 counter on a creature you control. So basically, if you have the biggest creature on the board, if you're the king of the monsters, draw a card. If not, work towards drawing a card. Very cool for limited. Very cool card. Maybe actually sideboard playable against a non-creature deck. Like if your opponent played a control deck, this might be a way to actually win a game. And if they did get a creature like a Lyra, this would help race the Lyra in theory, But like we don't have a Lyra in this set, but Dream Trawler is like Lyra. This card's nice. I don't know if it's actually good, but it's nice. Parcel Beast. 2 blue-green elemental beast. Elemental, very nice for our Risen Reef tag. Mutate for blue and green, so it costs less to mutate, which is nice. It has 1 tap. Look at the top card of your library. If it's a land, you may put it onto the battlefield. If you don't, put that card in your hand. So it's basically you get 1 tap and then Risen Reef for a 2/4. Very nice. You can actually put this on a Risen Reef, and then you'll get the Risen Reef ability, and then you could like tap the Risen Reef, do it again, and then upgrade your Risen Reef to a 2/4. Very sweet value card. Don't know if it's playable because of how strong things are, but it's very, very cool. I like this card a lot. Also, the art's nice. Offspring Revenge. 2 red, white, black enchantment. At the beginning of each combat on your turn, exile target red, white, or black creature card from your graveyard. Create a token that's a copy of that card, except it's a 1/1. It gains haste until end of turn. So this is a really cool reanimate card. It's a one-off because it does exile those cards from your graveyard and they don't come back. You need a processor to do that. And then, I don't know. It's cool. You can Drakuseth. This card's nice. Where like the double strike 3/5 mutate creature we saw, and also with Wedge and multicolor sets, it's very easy to get like a lot of the same colors to happen. So I like this card a lot. It's very cool. I don't know if it's good enough, but it's very, very cool. All right. Nethrall, Apex of Death. I like this one. 2 and then white, black, green. Legendary creature, Cat Nightmare Beast. So it works great with our lore that we saw earlier. Yes, you can mutate a big creature onto the token. That is correct. Which is nice. Like the double strike guy, it might actually be great. You can mutate. Oh, I guess they're legendary creatures, so they'd fall off. But you could. That still works. There's probably ways around that. This is mutate, and you can pay 4, and then Selesnya black. It has Death Touch Lifelink, and whenever this creature mutates, return any number of target creature cards with the total power 10 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. So this is a way that we can recoup all the lost advantage we've had over the course of the game, all the lost mutate creatures we've had, and bring everything back. And it's a 5/5 lifelinker, which is like kind of just big. It is like a Lyra. 5/5s are kind of big enough. I don't know why we have Death Touch, except for the part where we can mutate something else on top of this for a reason, like maybe want to give something flying. I guess if you would give it flying, if there was a bigger flyer, there's a reason to make this thing the bottom thing. It's very nice. Doom was saying that they thought it wouldn't fall off if you mutate legends on each other. Oh, really? Sorry about that, Doom. Interesting. I don't know how that works. If it doesn't work, if it works that way, then mutating onto a mutate of the same creature is very strong, I would assume, because they would trigger twice, right? We would do like 8, gain 8. And we would bring back everything. That's important to know, though. If we could figure that out, that's very important. But anyway, this card's very strong. Things I like with this card are like Cheerio style stuff, where like we have a bunch of 0/0s that we could bring back. Also, there are creatures that come back with counters. So we saw the insect from before. The good one for standard is Pelucranos. 4 mana, 6/6 that adds 0 power towards your 10. So you could like bring back Pelucranos and some BS creature that got milled over. Love this card. I think it's great. I don't know if it's good enough, which is really, 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 really sad. Okay. Oh, interesting. Okay, so from what Doom's saying here, it seems like that would work. So mutating on. So with that being the case, the Jeskai and the Mardu one I think are much better, because now the Legendary Claws won't be as much of a drawback as I thought it was going to be. Yeah, I know what you meant, the pile of mutations. Yeah, the actual physical stack. So yeah, if that's the case, then I think all the mutate cards that we've talked about that are legendary from earlier get much stronger. And just in general, mutating under mutate lets me get around the worry of having, to not play 4 of those in a deck. Like before, I might want to play 2 or 3 of the Mardu one to not get them clogged. Now I just want to play 4. You get both ETBs, right? Well, they're mutates, not ETBs. So, but yes, I think so. Worth noting, this is a white-black mutate. So it could go in our Mardu deck with our cards, right? Like once again, important to remember that we could play these cards just as pump spells that turn into creatures. Don't know if that's optimal, but it's something you can do. Necropanther. 1 white-black for a cat nightmare. Mutate for 2 white-black, white-black. Whenever this creature mutates, return target creature card with converted mana cost 3 or less from the graveyard to the battlefield. Seems like very nice at making sure our mutate deck keeps the engines going. Kind of at odds with Apex of Death and shares some of the colors, but not all the colors. So, for what it's worth, it's what it's worth. Yeah, so the mutate will trigger no matter what if you kill it, right? Try to mutate onto a creature and it gets killed in response. The mutate trigger won't happen. Yeah, so you still get the creature. So you always get some amount of value, right? You either get the mutate and they'll kill the combination of creatures, or you get the creature itself and trying to kill the mutate. Necropanther seems cool. Our first Planeswalker, and my favorite Planeswalker in general, maybe not this one, Narset of the Ancient Way. 1 white, red, blue for a legendary Planeswalker. Narset has 4 loyalty. It has you gain 2 life for a +1, and you add 1 of the 3 Jeskai colors of mana, and you can only send that mana to cast non-creature spells, which is, nice-ish. It has a -2 of draw a card, then you may discard a card. When you discard a non-land card this way, Narset deals damage equal to its converted mana cost to target creature or planeswalkers, and nice at picking off other planeswalkers or other creatures. A weird way to defend itself. It's also weird because it's like a loot, right? Because you have to discard, so you don't actually have to choose. But whatever. Then -6, you get an emblem with whenever you cast a non-creature spell, this emblem deals 2 damage to any target. So it starts on 4 after 2 turns of gaining you some life and stuff. You get to ultimate. Seems fine. It's not particularly strong. It's nice at killing other walkers. Helps stabilize you against an aggro. Against an aggro deck, it helps stabilize you in 2 ways, right? Like, you can pick off a creature, and at 4 mana, if you can defend it with something else, that's pretty strong. And then it starts gaining you life if the board's empty on the late game, even if you don't cast a spell. And generating extra mana will let you do things cast like the Jeskai Ultimatum, if you wanted to do that, or another Planeswalker like a Teferi. You might be able to cast a Teferi and hold up a Justice Strike, things of that nature. It seems fine. Nothing that I'm like, oh my god. I'm gonna have to skip some of these just for the sake of my voice and time. This creature, when you mutate, you get a spell back from your graveyard. This one actually seems kind of strong. I'm not gonna read the whole thing. It's nice. Discard Emrakul, deal 15. That would be sick. That would be nice. I imagine you start with that in play design, and then you play and you're like, oh, this isn't fun. So, but it would fit the Jeskai colors to do that. This is a cool card for mutate. It works with spells. You don't see a lot of mutate creatures interact with spells that much. I like this card. I don't know what to do with it. Labyrinth Raptors. This is one of the menace creatures we talked about earlier. It is red-black for a Nightmare Dinosaur, which works with our little lord we talked about earlier. Menace. Whenever a creature you control with Menace becomes blocked, defending player sacrifices a creature blocking it. Red, black. Creatures you control with Menace get +1/+0 until end turn. Nice mana sink for our Menace creatures. Fixes the Menace problem we talked about earlier, where Menace creatures don't kill both creatures normally. They'll get to pick for the optimal one, but it is more likely for you to kill both now. You might just get got and like, yeah, my 1/1 token dies and my 5/5 blocks your 2/2. But Menace creatures are good at pushing damage. Pumping them and other Menace creatures is nice. And with our Super Menace guy, this could be a nice curve where you just kind of like really hit them and then they just can't block everything. And now you're forced to race. And this helps win races. So I love Labyrinth Raptor. The streamer event thing has been announced, so I can say that like during the streamer showdown, I'm going to play a Menace deck. All right. Whew, this card, I want to skip cards, but we can't, unfortunately, because there are so many crazy ones. Kenya Bonder Prodigy. Blue-green for a legendary creature, human druid. Whenever you tap a non-land permanent for mana, add 1 mana of any type that permanent produced. So if like your Birds of Paradise, right, you get like 2 of a mana. Nobles, etc., land or elves. And then you have 5 blue-green. Look at the top 5 cards of your library. You may put a non-human creature from among them. Wub. Thank you for the sub, buddy. You rock. You may look at the top 5 cards. You may put a non-human creature card from among them onto the battlefield. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. This seems really nice if you have infinite mana. And in infinite mana decks, normally they play a lot of mana creatures in the early turn to accelerate. So this is a great way to be like, okay, I went noble into, I played this, and now this is free, so I can play like another thing. And then the next turn I have like a bunch of mana, and I can just start spinning, kind of like how Duskwatch Recruiter allows. I don't know if it's better than a Duskwatch Recruiter, but this card seems strong. I definitely have a place in Eternal format. For Standard, we don't have a whole lot of mana-producing creatures that are cheaper than this, but we have a lot that are of the same mana type, or converted mana cost, I should say. So like Paradise Druid, the 03, I actually have it over here, hang on. Leafkin Druid, and things of that nature. You can play this and then get extra mana and go free. So just an Ikoria. It has like a Commander Set-ish vibe. There are just a lot of really, really strong cards, I would say. But yeah, I think this card has potential. It works very nice with things like the Moxen, Chromatic Stars, stuff like that for older formats, but oh yeah, it does seem nice with the Adapt Mandork. That is a nice one. It will have to be another creature you have from the side, but powerful still. I'm going to go grab some more water for my throat real quick, so it's going to be like a minute break. I'll be right back. But yeah, I think this card's strong. I'm going to try and think of other places to applicate it, but I've heard people say this card is unbelievably busted, and I'm not sure if that's the case in non-super old formats. I'm back. You're on YouTube, deal with it. Love you all, but you know, you can skip ahead. You can click the little tap button. Alright. Jessica. Inspired Ultimatum. Blue, red, white. Target player gains 5 life. Inspired Ultimatum deals 5 damage to any target. And then you draw 5 cards. Kind of the opposite of Cruel Ultimatum in a way. Card seems nice. Seems nice with Narset. You can discard Narset to deal 7 to something. Off Narset, Narset ramps into this. It just seems like a strong card. Oh, that thing does go infinite, yeah, with Monolith and stuff like that. But that's not like a thing, you know? Oh yeah, Forking Row's nice with this. The otter we saw earlier is nice with this. Probably not a super constructed level card, but definitely a cool one. And, you know, I can't imagine a deck that wants this, but I know I can spin it off Golos. Do we need to draw? I don't want to draw 10. I want to deal 10. Ooh, drawing 10 as a Niv is nice. Yeah, that's a 20 combo. That's true. All right. Aluna, Apex of Wishes. 2 green, blue, red. Mutate for 3 Gruul Hybrid and then blue, blue. Flying Trample. That's a good combo to have on your mutate creature. Whenever this creature mutates, exile a card from the top of your library until you exile a non-land permanent card. Put that card on the battlefield or into your hand. Seems pretty strong. It's a little expensive, but in mid-range battles, it's insane. I can't imagine beating this card in Limited. All of these mythic mutate creatures seem unbeatable in Limited. Just what a world. This card seems strong. I don't know what I'm supposed to do with it though. Like all these mutate creatures, all I know is that I want to put Stonecoil Serpent, and so far we've only talked about multi-color cards, so I can't mention that. Did I say something about wishing? Did I misread the card? Put a card. I don't think. Who's talking about wishing? Hang on. Oh, yeah, that's true. No wishing on the Apex of Wishes is a fail. Shuffle your sideboard. Flip the top card. Put it in your hand. That's fair. All right. Ooh, the biggest swing of all the ultimatum cards, maybe. Genesis Ultimatum. Blue, blue. I'm sorry, green, green. Blue, blue, blue. Red, red. Sorcery. Look at the top 5 cards of your library. Put any number of permanents from among them onto the battlefield and put the rest in your hand. Exile Genesis Ultimatum. Important to notice this one does say exile because they figured out that you could loot this one probably pretty easily. So this card can be busted, right? Like it's very easy for this thing to win the game upon resolution. It's also very easy to, you know, hit 4 lands and a spell, or hit like Paradise Druid, land, Nissa, which isn't like the worst from what I've said, but you know, not the greatest. I think this one is the swingiest, and unless I had some way to like guarantee I win with this, I just don't know if a draw 5 is good enough. Letting you cheat the things on the battlefield is nice, but I'm gonna like Paradise Druid, Risen Reef into this card, Omnath into this card, Cavalier into this card, and that's probably not going to lead to the best results, but 2 fewer cards in the Spirit. That is true. Yeah, it is an Ugin the Spirit Dragon ult. That's a good point. So, something to be said there. Sweet, sweet card, though. I'd love to try something with it. Yeah, it's nice. All right, we have a human soldier. Legendary humans you control of indestructible, which is nice. Protects our lord, which we'll talk about later. There seems to be a human sub-theme to the set. 2 white, black, exile target card from your graveyard. If it was a creature card, create a 1/1 white human soldier creature token, 2/3. Seems nice for a standard human deck. Probably nothing else in the older formats. This one seems nice in older formats. General Kudro of Draenith. 1 white, black, legendary creature, human soldier. Other humans you control get +1/+1. Whenever this creature or another human enters the battlefield under your control, exile target card from an opponent's graveyard. So big. We'll go back to that in a second. And then 2, sacrifice 2 humans, destroy target creature with power 4 or greater. So, General Kudro here, very nice as like a human lord in standard. Beats up on Ura, beats up on Kroxa, beats up, I guess, on all the escape cards, to be fair. So it's kind of like some free value for that kind of part. And then also makes them harder to actually escape later in the game, which is nice. Very good at beating Elswith Conquers Death, right? You get to like exile the things as it goes there. And then the sacrifice ability, actually, by sacrificing 2 humans, you can count itself. So you can do it plus something else in response to a removal spell, and it killed their big thing. This card seems quite strong to me. It being a lord is like just the thing that pushes it over the line. I don't know about modern humans. I'm going to leave that up to my teammate Dylan Hand. But maybe white-black is actually just like one of the primary colors you do for humans now in modern. I don't know. But I know that card is very strong. Felidar, the Frondland Felidar. 2 green, white. I don't know how I got there. Cat Beast Vigilance. Creatures you control with Vigilance have 1 tap target creature, 3/5. We have the Orphanage, the companion we talked about earlier for cat and beasts. Have to be the only things in our deck, so this would be like a 4/6 with that in play, and it had the same ability, and it gives all the creatures Vigilance. This gives it to that. Your ability to attack with Vigilance creatures and then before blocks tap their stuff down is nice. I don't know if it's good enough for Standard, but it is something to keep an eye out on. Emergence Ultimatum. This is the cool one in my opinion. Black, green, blue. Sorcery. Search your library for up to 3 monocolored cards with a different name and exile them. An opponent chooses one of those. Shuffle that card into your library. You may cast the other cards without paying their mana cost. Exile Emergence Ultimatum after that. So you can't like go and grab the other ultimatums, which would be cool. But things you could grab are like what's it called? Enraise the Forerunner, Agent of Treachery, some big creature, right? Something like that. You could also set up for like this could be a way to win the game with a bunch of self-mill type stuff. Like you could go get Risen Reef Cavalier Jace and be like, okay, what are you gonna do? Like it's kind of a fact or fiction. I imagine this card wins the game whenever you cast it. I don't know exactly how to do that, but it's really exciting to me. So that's where we're at with it. But I assume, why can't I? Oh, because it's my bad. So you could get Jace Cavalier, and then something else. What can I get that's good with this? And I'm sure there are other things. You just get a value creature, but it seems powerful to me. Maybe I'm mistaken, but this ultimatum seems like the second best or best ultimatum in my opinion. All right, I haven't read this one yet. So this is the Abzan Ultimatum. Return a number of, so it's white, black, green. Return a number of permanent cards with different names from your graveyard to the battlefield, like a nice mass regrowth. This also works really well with all the self-mill stuff. We've seen Abzan has this kind of bring stuff back from the graveyard theme. Maybe it's really strong. Seems unbeatable and limited if you could cast it. Dire Tactics. This card's nice for a standard deck. So white, black. Exile a target creature. If you don't control a human, you lose life equal to that creature's toughness. So if you got a humans and you're playing a human deck, this is just, boom, obliterate your thing. If you don't have a human, you have to lose some life. Probably would do that in most situations since like a creature would hit you. And it'd be like worth it anyways. Also, equal to toughness makes it so that like it varies, but a lot of the time creatures have more attack than toughness in other aggro decks. And against slower decks, you really want to kill the thing that's in the way, so it's not something you would deal with. Like, it was something you're okay with dealing with. Seems very strong. Also, part of the reason why I thought maybe humans in Modern might consider being white-black something. Like, they could be an Abzan deck, would be my guess. This is a strong removal spell. You have Path and stuff like that, so maybe you don't want this, I'm not sure, but... Okay. Death's Oasis. Abzan for an enchantment. Whenever a non-token creature you control dies, put the top 2 cards from your library into your graveyard. Then return a creature card with converted mana cost. Convert with less converted mana cost than the creature that died in your graveyard into your hand. 1, sacrifice this card. You gain life equal to the greatest converted mana cost among creatures you control. I don't know what I'm supposed to do with this card. So when something dies, I get something else, and then I gain life. This seems like an engine. What could you do with this card? I'm not sure. Sorry, I'm getting a bunch of messages. I'm checking to make sure everything's okay. Yeah, I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do with this. I don't know, but it seems really cool. All right. Oh, sure. That's a good point. The Reverse Pod, Charming Prince, and Woe Strider. Bane of Monsters. Black-green for a legendary creature, human, rogue, death touch. At the beginning of your upkeep, if your opponent controls no permanents with a bounty counter on them, put a bounty counter on target creature or planeswalker an opponent controls. Whenever a permanent an opponent controls with a bounty counter on it dies, you gain 3 life and draw a card. Very nice against creature decks. This card seems awesome. There's Cruel Celebrant. Oh, that's a good thing to do. Sure. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, this thing, though, seems very nice at, like, stabilizing you against an aggressive deck and then also just providing extra value. Really sweet card. Unsure if this is more than a sideboard option for a removal heavy deck, but maybe you'd want to main deck this thing. I'm not positive. Channel Force. 2 blue-red instant. As initial cost to cast a spell, discard X cards. Target player draws X cards. Channel Force deals X damage to up to 1 target creature or planeswalker. So you rummage and then deal damage to something. Seems really nice and limited. Maybe there's a combo you could do. Brokos, Apex of Forever. 2 black, blue, green for mutate Demir, 2 and green, and has trample, and you can mutate this from your graveyard. So just a 6/6 with trample, so it's like a pump spell mutate. Seems fine. I don't know if it's particularly strong for standard, but for limited it seems good. Boneyard Lurker, 2 black green, mutate for 2 Golgari hybrid. Whenever this creature mutates, return target permanent card from your graveyard to your hand. It seems nice for limited. Mutate Enabler. All right, back for more. This is our last gold card. Oh, sorry. It is 4 black green for an instant. Return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. When you do, fight up to 1 target creature you don't control. So I like this card because a lot of time, like, when you reanimate something, it's a tempo loss if the creature doesn't do something on ETB. And now I probably want to return things to strong ETBs anyways, and if they can also fight and kill something in my big monster set, this seems nice at doing that. All right, so we have finished the multicolored cards. There's all the cards. We're going to start from the white, and we're going to work our way down to the bottom. I'm going to skip cards that are not constructed playable. So cool for limited, cool for limited. Creatures you control get +2 and cycling. Cool for limited. This is a mutate creature that whenever a creature mutates onto this creature, create 2 1/1 white cat creatures with lifelink, 3/5. So it's like a hero blade hold from mutate. This actually seems kind of strong. I like this card. I'm not sure I'm supposed to, like, the thing with white is that traditionally they have a lot of humans that I would want to curve out with. So I need to look at things that aren't human. Because I want to mutate this or have another good mutate creature, so I'm going to keep my eyes out for that. But yeah, Healer Hawk is the first one that comes to mind. Healer God's a god, which is nice, because gods can be mutated onto. Does battlefield make a human? Not quite what I'm looking for constructed. Divine Arrow, deal 4 damage target attacking a blocking creature. Not quite what we're looking for, but a potential sideboard card. Cycling Matter card. There we go. Here's one. Draenith Mage. By the way, my throat's loving that I got to skip 5 cards. Draenith Magistrate. Draenith's Magistrate. Gotcha. I figured it out. 1 in a white for a creature, human, a wizard. Your opponent cannot cast spells from anywhere other than their hands. Really good in Modern and Pioneer, I would assume, as well. It's a great hate card. It's a human, which matters a lot for those sets. For those formats, I should say. And in Standard, really good hate card against Uro and any sort of weird combo type cards you're trying to do. This card's just a nice role player. Fight as one. This is a cool one card. Oh, Teferi's best friend? Oh, sure. Yeah, that's true. Flourishing Fox. Alright. Not quite it. It's an interesting pump spell. Whenever you cycle another card, put a +1/+1 counter on the Flourishing Fox, so nice for mutate. That shit seems really good against red. Oh, Light at the Stage and Experimental Frenzy. Yeah. Those are good points. That's great. So it's another great sideboard option there. Let's see here. Ooh, the Doom Traveler cat. Interesting that the fact that it's not actually Doom Traveler matters a lot here, because flying on a non-creature token would be sweet. Oh, it stops all the adventure cards. I didn't even consider that for the Magistrate, because in my mind, the adventure cards are right next to my hand, because I always play with them on Arena. Oh, dang, that's huge. Okay. The Magistrate card, the 1/3 we just looked at, is very good. It might just actually be main deckable. You might just main deck that. I guess it's bad against Rakdos and things like that. It's still probably good enough. That card's probably like great at stopping Temur Clover and things of that nature. Garrison Cat. It's a Doom Traveler that makes a human. So, very interesting. We have a Nightmare Squirrel. Interesting. When it enters the battlefield, with your choice of flying or first strike. Okay, probably not constructed playable, but cool. This one is not good enough. This one is not good enough. Vigilance counter on a target non-human creature control. Put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control with Vigilance. So this one's kind of nice. So we have the Vigilance Matter card we talked about earlier. So the Keensight Mentor, 2 white for a human cleric. When Keensight Mentor enters the battlefield with a Vigilance counter on target non-human creature you control, 1 white tap, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature with Vigilance. A weird Lord with Vigilance, but also makes someone else kind of bigger. This might be something to keep an eye on. Labyrinth Venturer is a cool card. It's 2 white, blue. I'm sorry, 2 and a white. I don't know why I said white, blue. 2 and a white. As Labyrinth Venturer enters the battlefield, choose even or odd. Labyrinth Venturer has protection from each converted mana cost of the chosen value 3/3. It seems strong. A lot of decks have, like curves, and this would be a nice thing to stop, and then stopping from removal. The opponent's deck probably has a specific removal card you're thinking of, and this becomes protection from that removal. Also, it's an unset mechanic coming to a standard set, which is cool. I think this card's good. I think this card's actually very good. I know I've been skipping a lot of these monocolored cards because they've been a little weaker, but I think this one's actually just very, very strong. Light of Hope, white. Choose 1. Gain 4 life. Destroy target enchantment, hello, and then put a +1/+1 counter on target creature, hello. So it's actually like a demystify type card that's never really dead, because your white deck probably has a reason to put a +1/+1 counter, and the gain 4 life mode is just actually maybe relevant in a race situation against something like Fires. I think this card is actually very, very good. Sometimes the problem with effects like Disenchant is they'll juke you, and if they do juke you and they side out their Fires, or they don't draw their Fires, something like that, you could still use a +1/+1 counter or gain 4 life, which aren't great, but huge upgrades. This card very easily could have been a sorcery, but it's an instant. I think this card's actually very, very good. Mothra, Luminous Broodmoth. 2 white flying. Whenever a creature you control without flying dies, return to the battlefield under its owner's control with a flying counter on it, 3/4. You might remember Nightmare Shepherd from the last set. This is Nightmare Shepherd with flying. It seems strong. I don't know if it's that good, and Nightmare Shepherd's kind of showing me these kind of things aren't as good, but 1/1 versus coming back with flying is a pretty big difference, and I imagine Luminous Broodmoth is quite strong. If not playable still, though, just still strong. And cards are going to rotate. Remember Nightmare Shepherd plus Broodmoth for later, All right. A Mutate Enabler. Vigilance card. Okay, this one is Mythos of Snap Decks. 2 white. So each player chooses an artifact, a creature, an enchantment, and a planeswalker from among non-permanents they control, and sacrifice the rest. If black and red was spent to cast a spell, you choose the permanents for each player instead. So it becomes Tragic Arrogance in a Mardu deck. Wow. That is a strong Magic card. We all know how good Tragic Arrogant was in the past, and the green-white standard. Having to be Mardu is a big difference from having to be white. Either way, I think this card is at least worth considering, and something I'm keeping my eye out for in standard. Snapchat filter. Not quite what we're looking for. I'm kind of reading a little ahead here. This one's kind of interesting, so we'll talk about it. Sanctuary Lockdown, 2 and a white enchantment. Human creatures get +1/+1, which is Nice, kind of like a Lord effect that's hard to interact with, like a glorious anthem. And then you have 2 untapped humans you control, tap target creature, and opponent controls. Very nice at locking down the big monsters thematically. Also, very good at just like end of my turn, tap, untap, like untap for turn, attack, right? Seems nice. Also works very well with Vigilance. It's something I could definitely see a human's power level standard deck playing. Meow. Is that the, oh, it's a different 3-1 than the Leonin War Leader. I guess they're not Leonins on this set. Snare Tactician. Whenever you cycle a card, limited. This one's kind of interesting. So it's +2/+2, and target creature gets, until end of turn, they gets a flying counter. I have no idea how much to evaluate a flying counter at. I assume very highly. I assume it's worth 2 mana, because flying is one of the best keywords. So I assume this card might have a shot at Constructed. Just like Mighty Leap was a card that sometimes saw fringe play in heroic decks, and putting this on like your Boros Feather deck, right, and like giving your 2/2 a flying counter and a +1/+1 counter from being targeted, and +2/+2 until end of turn is strong. And even if you don't kill them, you get the flying for the next turn. So also nice with the monolith we saw at the beginning of the set review, the Ozolith, I believe was the name. Putting counters on stuff can be nice. And in that deck, you get a lot of +1/+1 counters, so that might be just an actual thing you do. Limited. I was looking at the next one. This one seems good. All right, the Swallow Hole. White sorcery. As additional cost to cast this card, tap an untapped creature you control. Exile target tapped creature. Put a +1/+1 counter on the creature that you tapped for this. So it has white Convoke 1. But the Convoke like has to be paid. And if you do that, you kill a tapped creature and then your creature gets bigger. This card seems very strong to me. Removal defined sets in a lot of time. And this card seems like a big get for white decks. White decks seem to have a lot of Vigilance creatures. This thing seems very strong to me. You don't get to use the +1/+1 counter right away, but for standard power level, I'm very much about this card. All right, limited. Just noticing it took us 15 minutes to go over the white cards. Limited. All right, let's do this here. Look at the top 3 cards of your library. Put one of them into your hand with the rest of them on your library in any order. That's cool, but probably not it in standard. I didn't realize the name was Anticipate. I just read the text box. Anticipate has shown to not quite be good enough in standard, unfortunately. I love that art, though. Archipelago? I don't know. Whenever you use creature, tap. Okay, yeah, I thought this was a different one. It's a limited card. Limited card. Draw 4 cards, cycling 1 for 4 blue for a sorcery. It seems really cool and limited. It seems really sweet. Probably not what I'm about. Does seem nice with the Sultai Ultimatum, though. You could draw 4. I don't know if that's the best thing I could do for 7 mana. That's nice. Capture Sphere, great for limited. Convolute, so just a nice counterspell to have in the format. Crustacean, it's cool looking. It seems like a nice thing to mutate on. Yeah, it's no hieroglyphic elimination, that's true. Dreamtail Heron, whenever you mutate, draw a card. Nice for limited. Oh, I think this is the limited one too. Oh, sure. So this one has some interesting applications. So, Escape Protocol, 1 in a blue enchantment. Whenever you cycle a card, you may pay 1. When you do, exile target artifact or creature you control and return to the battlefield under its owner's control. So it's like an astral slide in a way. Very interesting card. Seems kind of powerful. I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do with it, but something to keep an eye on for sure. Essence Scatter with an amazing art. Love to have Essence Scatter back. Love to have this art for the rest of the time on Essence Scatter. Just a looter. Sorry, I was reading another message there. Just a tapper. Weird creature. Interesting with mutate that it untaps itself. So you could have a mutate creature with this. Probably worth mentioning, like, flying and having the ability to untap itself and be cheap with mutate creatures might be worth keeping an eye on. The Glimmer Bell might actually be quite good. Gust of Wind, 3 and a blue. This spell costs 2 less to cast if you control a creature of flying. So we saw the flying matter cards earlier, so it'd be 2 mana. Return target non-land permanent you don't control to its owner hand and draw a card. So you kind of unsummon something and draw like so it's like a kicked into the royal all the time, and then it's better if you don't have it's better if you do have a flyer. It's also like a blink of the eye for those that just started. Limited. All right, this is interesting. Keep safe. White. 1 blue. I don't know what white. 1 blue. Instant. Counter target spell that targets a permanent you control. Draw a card. If you're playing like some sort of Delver deck, this might be nice to counter a kill spell. It's like a Veil of Summer for your stuff. And drawing a card's a nice little upside. Tapper. All right, here's an interesting one. So Myth of a Luna. It's 2 blue. And then create a token that's a copy of target permanent. If you spent red and green to cast this spell, instead create a token that's a copy of the permanent, except the token has when the permanent enters the battlefield. If it's a creature, it fights up to 1 target creature you don't control. So you get 2 tokens. You get 1 token, but it fights something. So in theory, the creature, it actually becomes a kill spell for a copy of a clone, or it's kill something weaker. Pretty cool card, probably not constructed playable, but there are a lot of clone effects now, so maybe you could combo off. Actually, I think this card's worth talking about. Neutralize is cancel 1 blue, counter target spell, cycling 2. Cancel is not close to playable. Counter spells are kind of not really there, but we see Flash decks see a little bit of play. We see Sinister Sabotage seeing a little bit of play, and this seems better. While you can't surveil, the ability to cycle is nice to find the card you want. And specifically this next point, it is not dead against Teferi. Oh, that does seem great in Commander, that copy thing, yeah. Of 1 mind, 2 and a blue sorcery. This spell costs 2 less to cast if you control a human creature and a non-human creature. Draw 2 cards. So, Michael has gotten to you on Neutralize. Neutralize is good. Yeah, gotta be careful with Teferi. This card's sweet though. I love the set has this real, and we're gonna see it later too. But like, there's a bunch of cards that when humans and dinosaurs, or humans and creatures work together, they get good. Oh, cancels aren't good. Yeah. Cancels aren't good. Rest in peace, Michael Hinderocker once told me, he's dead now, he's WotC staff, but I remember he told me if someone tells you their deck has Absorb, or has a cancel variant in it, and they broke it, they didn't. And that haunts me at night, and I think it's true for the most part. But Neutralize is the best cancel in Standard, because Teferi exists. Context matters. Ominous Sea, whenever you draw a card, so okay, this one's interesting. Ominous Sea, 1 and a blue, enchantment. Whenever you draw a card, put a 4 shadow counter on Ominous Sea. Remove 8 4 shadow counters from Ominous Sea. Create an 8/8 blue Kraken creature token, cycling 2. This is a cool build around card. Worth noting, the obelisk thing we talked about earlier removes all counters, so you can like have multiple of these, and your opponent tries to disenchant it. You get to move your 4 shadow counters, so pretty cool. Phase Dolphin. 2 and a blue. Whenever this creature attacks, another target creature can... I don't know why it's a 1/4. For some reason, I read this as a 4/1 when I first started, and I was like, oh, we'll stop for a second, because I was like, this is huge. It's nice for limited. Baby Godzilla is this Godzilla's card. So this one is Polywog Symbiote for 1 and a blue. Creature Frog. Each creature spell you cast cost 1 less to cast if it has Mutate. So that's a nice little Mutate enabler we have. And whenever you cast a creature spell, if it has Mutate, draw a card and discard a card. So nice for keeping us from flaying out 1/3. Pretty strong. This is a mana war for Mutate. Whenever a creature you control deals combat damage. This is an interesting card. I don't know if this is good, but Reconnaissance Mission is 2 blue. Enchantment. Whenever your creature you control deals combat damage to a player, you may draw a card, cycling 2. It's like a weird Curious Obsession, but for all your creatures, but costs 4 mana. I'm sure there have been cards like this in the past. Having cycling 2 on it really helps. Probably not it, but if I could see it as a sideboard option against like a deck that tries to grind you out and you have like a lot of unblockable creatures, We're a lot of little creatures. Speaking of creatures that are good with unblockable and that try and grind people out, we have Sea Dasher Octopus, which is 1 blue for an octopus with mutate 1 in a blue. Flash, and whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, draw a card 2/2. So this is one of the better mutate cards. This is the octopus I alluded to earlier when we talked about mutate cards. It's like, I think the best comparison I've heard is Ninja of the Deep Hour, but important to remember that we do not get to recast the creature, which is important with Ninja of the Deep Hour. Like Fairy Miscreant and Ninja of the Deep Hour are combos together, and also like ETBs in general. And you kind of lose your creature once it does mutate on if it doesn't deal damage. That all being said, I think this card's quite strong. Not broken, but... Oh, Bind of Thassa. Thank you so much. Yeah, we saw Bind of Thassa see Fringe sideboard play at points in the format. So this octopus, though, it seems strong. It's got me very excited. I really want to try this one with Stonecoil Serpent. Mutating it onto anything, really, though. Like in our Dimir Flash deck, we've kind of been talking about a little bit. This seems like a very nice card. Like, it can't be countered in a lot of the spots. It mutates onto a lot of the creatures we saw. Just working through our deck, I think this card's just pretty good. And also just 3 mana, flash this in, and then hit them and draw a card is nice, you know? Just like, it is a slightly below rate creature on its own. Like, I would want this to be 1 in a blue to the flash on its own. It does have mutate, so kind of make up for it. Sharknado. Shark Typhoon. Shark Typhoon is 5 in a blue enchantment. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, create an XX blue shark creature token with flying, where X is the spell's converted mana cost, and has cycling X 1 blue. Discard this card, draw. Oh, that's just a reminder kick. Sorry. And then it says when you cycle this card, create an XX blue shark creature token with flying. I think this card's strong. It reminds me of, I think it's Decree of Justice, which made angels before, but this makes like a big shark. When you stick this card, it doesn't do anything the first turn, but I assume we can like ramp into this card, or it can be like a control finisher. And then when you need to, you can just cycle it away. It works well in multiples because having multiple big sharks is nice. Like, you can play this and then play another one on the next turn, and then you have a 6/6 flying shark for the next turn. And then things kind of pop up at that point. I think Sharknado is nice. Shark Typhoon is a powerful magic card. I'm not sure if it is busted. I don't think so, but I think it's a strong card, which is nice. Starting development. Cool. Thieving Otter. It is the... So you draw a card if you hit your opponent. So it's like 1 more mana than I talked about with the octopus, but nice with the octopus. You could put this in the same deck, and then you would draw 2 cards, which is, powerful. Voracious Great Shark, 3 blue, Flash Shark. Whenever Voracious Great Shark enters the battlefield, counter target artifact or creature spell. 5/4. Misread that for a second there. Seems powerful. I don't know if this is what I'm about. It's a lot of mana, but when you do play it, it is kind of big. It is like a blue Flame Tongue Kavu in a way. Cool, though. I love this card. It seems powerful and limited. Just some limited cards. So let's see here. Fixed Gearhulk. Yeah, it's kind of like a fair blue Gearhulk. That's a great way to explain it. If you always thought your Gearhulk would counter a card, specifically a creature or an artifact, that shark is nice. You do lose the Illumination mode off the blue Gearhulk, which was really big, and the Settle the Wreckage mode, but still worth considering maybe. That's a great way to put it, Wub. Bastion of Reimbursements. 2 in a black. Enchantment. Whenever Bastion of Reimbursements enter the battlefield, create a 1/1 white human creature token. Whenever a creature you control dies, each opponent loses 1 and you gain 1. I don't think this is good enough, but it's worth mentioning because we talked about a white-black humans deck potentially. This makes a human for you and your lords. Triggers like the Lord's ability to exile card, which can end up mattering, and also gives you protection, a little bit of protection from Wrath. Multiple of these obviously go nicely. Limited. Destroy target creature, put a menace counter on a creature you control for 3 and a black instant. Seems mostly limited, worth considering for our menace deck. If there's a good card we want, I want to give a menace counter. Menace, seconds into creature, you're gonna let me go that. Is they're all limited. Oh, here we go. Call of the Depth Dwellers. 2 and a black sorcery. Return up to 2 target cards, creature cards from your graveyard with converted mana cost 3 or less from the graveyard on the battlefield. Put a Death Touch counter on either of them, then put a Menace counter on either of them. So this is very nice with Goblin Chain World. It's very nice with Mayhem Devil. This card's sick. It's very cool. I bet there's a way to Splinter Twin with this card too in older formats. Like, I guess if you had Walking Ballista, no, I need it. It would die. Okay, never mind. But I'm sure there are ways to kill with this in older formats. I'm not going to spend the time thinking about that here. In Standard, just actually as a sideboard option for a Rakdos deck seems very reasonable. Like, bring back Mayhem Devil, bring back Robber of the Rich, right? Like, that's a powerful combo. And the Menace counter is kind of sick, what we talked about in our Menace deck, right? Like, you could just bring back 2 Menace creatures. To the battlefield, by the way, is very, very strong for 3 mana. And the Menace Death Touch makes it so it will most likely kill both things. So I like this card a lot. I think it is powerful. Limited. My throat's dying. Limited. Ah, the Bat. I love the Bat. This is good for our blue-black flash deck. This is the last card I was thinking about when we were talking earlier. Dirge Bat, 2 and a black. Bat. Mutate 4 black. Flash flying. Whenever this creature mutates, destroy a target creature an opponent controls 3/3. And it's 4 BB to mutate. It seems quite strong to me. In a flash deck, you would want some removal, and it kind of scales in the later game. And a 3/3 for 4 with flash and flying is a little lackluster, but you can mutate the octopus onto this. It's something that I want to definitely try in the blue-black Rasultai flash deck we've been talking about on stream. Seems nice. Dung Beetle. It's a Dung Beetle. Limited. Ah, this card's cool. Easy Prey. 2 and a black. Destroy target creature with converted mana cost 2 or less, cycling 2. Nice, efficient answer to answer cheap creatures. And then if the game goes long, you need to find something else, you can just cycle it away. This card's weird. Extinction Event. 3 and a black. Choose odd or even. Exile each creature with converted mana cost of the chosen value. 0 is even. 4 mana for a Wrath is interesting. It's 4 mana for a situational Wrath. 4 mana for Wrath is good. A situational Wrath is interesting. I imagine this card's quite nice if the even and or odd deck pops up a bunch. It's a nice little protection from that. And you also build your deck in a way where it's like, it's a one-sided Wrath that maybe you have in the sideboard. Like, I was playing the odd deck. Excuse me as I yawn. I might want to play this card to just obliterate even creatures, especially if evens were good. So this creature is interesting with the obelisk we talked about earlier. So Grim Dancer is 1 BB. When Grim Dancer enters the battlefield, choose 2 different counters from among Menace, Death Touch, Lifelink. That's nice if you wanted to play something with the obelisk. You could sacrifice that to move these counters around. I mentioned that. This is an insanely powerful kill spell. Heartless Act, 1 in a black, instant. Choose 1, destroy target creature with no counters on it. So historically, this is just, a very, very good kill spell. Then it has remove up to 3 counters from target creatures. So if your opponent does have counters on it and you can't kill it, you can make it smaller. This is the best Doomblade. Against things like Arcbound Ravager and Walking Ballista, it's going to kill them anyways, right? It's going to just, force that. Well, depends on the amount of counters on them. But traditionally, it will kill them. Is it better? Or it's better than the one with cycling. So I think the cycling one, while more flexible, because so the cycling one only kills things that are 2 or less. So flexible isn't the right word, but you can just move through it. This thing will always kill something or make them a much easier threat to handle. So I think this card is just the best Doomblade for Pioneer, maybe even Modern. And definitely, I think, going to be a card that helps in Standard a lot. It's unclear to me how many of the counter cards are going to be seeing a lot of play. But, this thing seems quite strong. Shrinking Hydrocrisis and Walking Ballistas, or Walking Ballista type cards is good. There's a colorless card in the set that I think we'll talk about later. That's like an XX that makes mana. So you might want to shrink that thing or force them to go for it then. And then the rest of the time, it just kills a creature. This card seems quite good. here's the big boy. This is a kind of a combo with the above card, because you gotta remember you can because you remove up to 3 counters from target creature, so you can remove keyword counters. So like you can remove like you can undo what your opponent's doing when they're working towards something, but also just like you could remove a +1/+1, a death touch, and a lifeline counter, right? Like you could do weird things with that card, and this one kind of helps you beat that in a weird way. So Haunted Nightmare, 1 black nightmare, menace. Whenever Haunted Nightmare enters the battlefield, target opponent puts a death touch counter on a creature they control. So ETB, they get a death touch counter. This is nice in our menace deck. And then in theory, if they have another creature, they can, block this thing. Heartless Act will get rid of the death touch, so you can like let them block, and they're like, oh yeah, my 2/2, one's death touch are gonna kill this. And you're like, well, actually, I'm gonna remove that counter, and now they die. And menace with death touch. Menace creature that's big is nice when they have death touch, because it's gonna probably kill each other. And then we have like the super menace, the mega menace card we talked about. Just seems like a pretty interesting card for the menace deck. This guy is not better than Rotting Regisaur. I do not think that. I think Rotting Regisaur wears Embercleave so well. I could believe that this and Rotting Regisaur go in a similar-ish deck. But this card has some real drawbacks, and you have to work to remove those, which I don't love. But we've been talking about the menacing deck, and this is just a card that seems to be powerful against that. Or powerful in that deck, I should say. Not against that. Insatiable Hemorrhaging. Whoa, this card is wild looking. Huh. It's just a limited card, but this card's kind of interesting. It's a limited card, but it might see play in like the Dimir flash deck. So Lurking Deadeye, 3 and a black, creature, human, assassin, flash. When Lurking Deadeye enters the battlefield, target creature that was dealt damage this turn is destroyed. So it's a 4/2. Yeah, Embercleave on the Embercleave is nice on both of those cards. That's very true. Totally is. Yeah, that's true. Also, I'll mention another thing. This thing, you could maybe play in your deck. You probably don't. Onto the Heartless thing, you can target your thing in the ice, and then your thing in the ice will be at 0 counters, and the next spell you cast will transform your thing in the ice for Eternal players. So if you're wanting to meme around a little bit, it's probably not a meme. If you're wanting to brew around, I should say, this is strong with thing in the ice. It goes, so, and those for wondering, thing in the ice will remove the counter when this card is cast. This will resolve, put it at 0. The thing in the ice needs to be at 0 counters upon resolving the spell, so you have to, Yeah, that's true. This is a real body on the Lurking Deadeye. So like it could be something that maybe we need to consider. Maybe the Wolves trade or something, Discard spell that's not really playable. Not really it. This is the weird Mythos of Nethrall, 2 and a black, instant, destroy target non-land permanent if it's a creature, or if Abzan mana was spent, cast destroy anything. So basically, like, you can destroy any permanent if you spent Abzan, black, green, white to cast the spell. And if you didn't, it's a 3 mana murder. It seems quite strong to me. This is a card that I think is powerful. I don't think it's as strong as the Heartless Pillage, but it's very, very good. And if you are an Abzan deck, this card is probably better than Heartless Pillage. But flexibility matters, at least to me. All right, we are closing in on the end of black here. We're hitting a lot of the limited boys. Voidbreaker. This is interesting. It cycles and puts a death touch counter on something. If there are things that really like to have death touch, like Mayhem Devil, so worth mentioning this card. Just like a cycle of those. All right, this one's worth mentioning because it's interesting. I'm not sure if it's actually playable, but Whisper Squad is a black creature, human soldier, 1 in a black. Search the library for a card named Whisper Squad. Put it onto the battlefield. Tap and then shuffle your library. It's a way to generate stuff. It's a stuff card. That is true. Yeah, the Abzan myth is very good at answering the powerful enchantments, the dominating standard. So there might be a pivotal role in those cards not being playable with Abzan as a playable deck. Whisper Squad, though, It's like a nice way to generate value for priest. Put cards in your graveyard. You have to actually, it costs a card is the problem with this card. Like the spot in your deck, right, that it takes to put this card in your deck is a real cost. I guess you could say this is nice with the 20 extra companion card, 20 extra cards in your deck card. But for the most part, you have to really work for this card, but it's cool enough to worth talking about, I think. This is pretty good. Yeah, if the squad had like lifelink where when it dies, gain a life, like maybe you could do something more. The Mamba, black for a 1/1. Whenever this creature mutates, start creature and opponent control get -2/-2 until end turn. Probably not quite there for constructed, but is a good mutate enabler in black, so worth mentioning. Blazing Volley we've seen before. What's the Thunder Raptor? Deals damage to our creature. Yeah. This is an interesting card. It's kind of like the buyback blue-red one from Ravnica, but Blitz of the Thunder Raptor is red, white. Sorry, red and white. I don't know why I keep saying white for one. Colorless. Instant. This deals damage to target creature or planeswalker equal to the number of instant and sorcery cards in your graveyard. If that creature or planeswalker would die this turn, exile instead. So you got some sort of self-mill type thing going on. This might be a nice early removal spell. Hard to know how good this actually is going to be, but it's something to at least take a look at. I like Cathartic Reunion to be in set, so that's cool. Also, we'll see why this matters, but like, the Capture Sphere of the Dinosaurs messed up. It's a cool little sub-story. Clash of Titans. Target creature fights another target creature. Thought that was a different spell. This Phoenix is interesting, so we'll talk about it. 2 red Phoenix, mutate for 3 in a red. Flying, whenever this creature mutates, create a red artifact token named Feather with 1. Sacrifice Feather, return target Phoenix card from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. It's a great way to get this one back. Did Theros Before Death was printed. That's an interesting fact, Doom. I did not know that. All right. Well, this is nice for getting back other Phoenixes and just itself as well. Has some nice protection. It looks like, if I'm reading this correctly, you could get multiple feathers. So you could just, like, if you got, like, 2 mutates onto this and then they killed it, you could bring back the bird and then still have another feather left behind for, like, trading combat or if it died to another kill spell, which is really cool. Fire Prophecy. Here we go. This card's messed up. Red 1. Instant. Deal 3 damage to target creature. You may put a card from your hand on the bottom of your library if you do draw a card. This card is very, very, very nice. Basically, like, just so many times you have like a land or something laying around, you just want to move through your deck and try to find something you're looking for. We just like turn the land into another land. It's like, great, didn't want to draw a land, turn into a spell, you're ecstatic. Bolting down creatures is important. Chandra's Triumph is a card that has seen fringe play recently with the blue-red decks popping back up. This is a, for the most part, better Chandra's Triumph a lot of the time. Fire Prophecy is a very powerful card that I expect us to see play through all of Standard, and maybe it becomes a staple card. Who knows? Fire Prophecy might be too specific a name, but I think that card is strong and probably good for Magic. Although I will say, repetitive game states, blah, 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 blah. Mission out with Companion. All right. Forbidden Friendship. I like this card. 1 in a red for a sorcery. Create a 1/1 red dinosaur creature token with haste and a 1/1 white human creature soldier token. This is like Raise the Alarm in red. So for like Convoke decks and stuff like that. It also just like generates 2 bodies for Rakdos. Like this plus Priest is kind of a combo. You can like even get the 1 in and then sack. So you get some little things you can do with this card. I think this is a pretty cool card. Also, there are a lot of cards that want us to have like instants and sorceries in our graveyard and cast instant sorceries in the last couple sets, including this one. And this is a 2-mana creature that's also an instant and sorcery. So it does come up perfectly with the blue draw spell, yeah. Frenzied Raptor we've seen before. Mentor, Go for Beyond. It is definitely possible I'm missing cards that are maybe going to be playable, but for the sake of my voice and y'all's life, I'm skipping them. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I can't read this card, so I'm going to have to like look in here. Pardon me. Exile the top 3 cards of your library. Creatures Exile this way, you may cast them from exile as long as you control this planeswalker. Okay, that's a pretty good +1. Exile target creature you control with a reveal card from the top of your library until you reveal a creature card with the highest converted mana cost. Put that card on the battlefield, bottom in order. Okay, each creature you control deal damage equal to power among. All right, so this card. I think this card's probably strong, but not like busted strong. It's just like a good value card. Basically, my problem with this card is that there are a lot of cards competing for this spot. But Luca might just, end up seeing play. Maybe a Gruul deck really wants something like this. Only creature was raised to 4. Oh, sure. You think he's going to be a Pioneer staple? What's he doing in Pioneer? What am I missing? I'm sure I'm missing something. For the sake of YouTube, I'm moving on. Alright. Myth of... oh, sure. That's fair. Mythros of Vadrok. 2 red sorcery. Deal 5 damage. Divided as you choose among any number of target creatures and or planeswalkers. If you spend white and a blue to cast a spell, until your next turn, those permanents can't attack or block, and their activated abilities can't be activated. So it's a nice way to, just kill stuff, or ping, attacking for lethal. This card's awesome looking. It's a porcupine parrot. Monkey. These are all the ones. I kind of did a little overview earlier today for the limited ones. All right, so this is okay, we're gonna talk about this. It's like Possibility Stormbow Cycling. Unpredictable Cyclone, 3 red enchantment. If a cycling ability of another non-land card would cause you to draw a card, instead exile cards from the top of your library until an exiled card that shares a card type with this cycle card. You may cast that card without paying its mana cost. Then put the exiled card that weren't cast this way on the bottom of your library in a random order for cycling for 2. So you can cycle and hit something. It's kind of like Possibility Storm. If you cycle creatures, you could hit Emrakul. You could also hit a Street Wraith if you had that in Modern. But Street Wraith will hit Street Wraith, so you're kind of dicey there, and it's 5 mana. This card seems really fun. It's a really cool deck building tool. It's a cool tool. Alright. Weaponize the monsters. This is an interesting card. Red for an enchantment. 2, sacrifice a creature. Weaponize the monster deals 2 damage to any target. Maybe it's a sideboard option. It's just kind of a cool one. Eudora, the Wandering Monster. 5 red for a legendary dinosaur turtle. Nice. Trample, haste, cycling, 1 in a red. Whenever Eudora, the Wandering Monster, is cycled, shuffled into your library. If you have cycled 4 times, it's the 4th time, cast it instead. So it's a really interesting card that basically incentivizes you to cycle it a bunch, and then you could sometimes just 8 them. And then in the future, you have 1 in a red, 8/8 trample, haste, draw a card. I'm not sure how I'm supposed to build a deck around this card, but it's very, very cool. I like the idea of it, and I hope it is playable because it's fun. Although, I will say that once you unlock the reward for an 8/8 trample haste, those are strong. So, we'll see. That's going to move us on to green. Adventurous Impulse is back. This is a card that I think saw Fringe play before. It's nice to have back in the format. These are all the... Alright, we'll talk about this one because it's fun. Classification, 5 green, enchantment aura. Enchanted creature gets +20/+20 when this enters the battlefield. Tap enchanted creature. So if you could flash this thing, you could, kill someone. But cool card. This is an interesting one. It's +3/+3, and you get a trample counter. So for the same kind of logic we talked about earlier with the feather deck, this might be something that you want to put on one of your bigger creatures and bust through, and then feather brings it back. I do think this card's pretty good. Gem Razor is 3 and a green for a mutate beast, and you can 1 green to mutate. It has reach trample. Whenever this creature mutates, destroy target artifact or enchantment opponent controls. Just kind of nice. It's just a big body. You can put on another mutate creature you mutated earlier. It blows up something, and then in the future, every time you mutate, you're blowing up another thing. If you're sideboarding this, then they probably have something. I think this card's just kind of a strong card and a rate card. Glad to have it hopefully beat up on fires. I do like the return of Greater Sandworm with some sweet art. Love this card. I have it in my Pauper Reanimate deck. It's quite fun. So we have another mana dork for what it's worth. We have the Humble Naturalist. Add 1 mana of any color. Spend this mana only to cast creature spells. It's a 1/3. Having that kind of body could be relevant. Only casting creature spells is a bit of a downside, but it is Birds of Paradise for that. So probably a good role player in limited to like let you splash or cast your tricolor cards. And in a mutate deck, you probably have a lot of creatures. So, you know, this might not be a huge drawback as it looks. We have King Kong, Kogala, the Titan Ape. 3 green. For a legendary creature ape, when Kogala enters the battlefield, it fights up to 1 target creature. Whenever Kogala attacks, destroy target artifact or enchantment defending player controls. 1 and a green, return target human you control to its owner's hand. Return target human you control to its owner's hand. Kogala gains indestructible until end of turn. I like it. It's like, you know, when King Kong picks up the girl and then like protects her, he like can't die. You know, he's like fighting off the stuff. Some good flavor. A little expensive, but, you know, does beat up on enchantments and stuff like that, which is sometimes a problem. Reveal the Lead the Stampede. It was previewed last night, and this card is nice. For 2 and a green, sorcery, look at the top 5 cards of your library. Really number of creature cards from among them, put them in your hand, put the rest in the bottom in any order. This is nice for Pioneer Elves, nice for Historic Elves, and also just nice with like the Mutate cards, like we talked about. Mutate decks probably have a lot of creatures because the Mutate cards are kind of like spells. So this is a great way to move through them. And like we talked about with the Mana Dork a second ago, the only creature part can be a downside. But if you have cards like Lead the Stampede as your only spells, and maybe something like Adventurer's Impulse or something like that kind of lines, right? It won't be that big a deal because you'll just have a bunch of creatures to play all the time. So this is nice. Migration Path. 3 and a green. Search your library for up to 2 basic land cards. Put them on the battlefield. Tapped. Shuffle your library. Then cycling 2. It's explosive vegetation with cycling. Sometimes it's super late game and you just need to draw something that's action, and you just need to cycle. And sometimes in the early game, you mulligan and you draw this card and you're like, I just need to get to another card. And having cycling on this kind of card enables that. This card is awesome. Alright. Okay. The Myth of Brokos. 2 green, sorcery. If blue and black was spent to cast this card, search your library for a card, put that card into your graveyard and shuffle your library. Return up to 2 target permanent cards from your graveyard to your hand. So it becomes a tutor if you spent Sultai mana, and otherwise it's a double regrowth. Probably fringe playable and probably enable some combos, to be honest. I don't know what, but that's why I keep my eye out for that card. Titanoth Rex, 7 green. This is the Godzilla. Trample, cycling 1 green when it cycles. Put a trample counter on something. This is nice to reanimate. It's a big boy. Vivian, Monsters Advocate. I like Vivian a lot. Vivian is 3 green for a legendary planeswalker. When you look at the top card, it has a static ability of. You may look at the top card of your library at any time. You may cast creature spells from the top of your library as if they were in your hand. So you just, well, it's just from the top of your library, I should say. It doesn't say as if they're in your hand. That would get around other cards. But basically, you can cast them anytime. It has 3 loyalty. +1, create a 3/3 green beast as token with a vigilance counter on it, a reach counter. Or sorry, with a vigilance, a reach, or a trample counter on it. And then -2, whenever you cast your next creature spell during this turn, search your library for a creature card with lesser converted mana cost and put it onto the battlefield and shuffle your library. So very nice to go search up combos. Also just a value card. Protects itself. 5 mana. It's just a powerful, like a strong planeswalker. Not super duper powerful, but good enough. We have a disenchant that cycles, which is nice in green. And that is it. That's going to do it for the set review. Thank you all so much for watching. I know this was long. I know it was a lot, but that's what happens when you go over every card in the set. Yeah, I really am excited for this set. I'm excited to see what people do. This is the kind of set that I think Brewers are going to have a really great time with, and there are going to be some really awesome standard decks. And even if some of those top decks maybe don't get usurped this time, we're definitely going to get powerful inclusions in those decks. So thank you all so much for watching. I'm going to host someone now. Vivian, but yes, this card could be strong in eternal formats. All right, I'm going to go host Ash, who is, I believe, practicing for tomorrow's invite-only event or whatever, the super PT thing you had to qualify for by doing the last GPs, whatever. I don't know what it's called. But thank you all so much for watching. It was a blast. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to comment, like, and subscribe. What's your favorite card in the set? I think Vivian's actually one of my favorite cards, so it's nice that we got to end on her. She's just really sweet. I like this card a lot. So thank you all so much for watching, and we'll see you all next time.